PSGL is brought to you by Sim Racing Setups. Get your pro setups, unlock extra performance with the Pro F1 25 car setups created by the drivers in PSGL. Esports and stable setups for every track, quali, race and wet setups, optimal race strategies, free meta setup updates, as well as created by drivers racing in PSGL, pro support and compatible with Xbox, PlayStation and PC. All setups just $49.99. Get them from simracingsetup.com and use code PSGL for a 5% discount. See you on track. Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to PSGL. George Morgan here, your commentator, alongside me, TK, who is going to be rounding off the season with me.
Down the inside,
absolutely possible season.
This is for the win between these two.
I'm on the edge of my seat.
He needs to get it done now.
Blakey will dive to the inside.
We're robust. We got our elbows out.
Ronar takes the lead.
Because here comes Alfie Butcher.
Can't really complain with that one.
It's not going to be easy. The pressure is on, of course.
Jarno Opmeer is your champion. Good evening, everybody, and welcome back to PSGL. We are back once again racing at Qatar for only a third time throughout the course of the time that we've been in existence for PCF1, it has to be said, ever since season 27. Of course, we have had 3 different world champions either taking pole or victory, with Tom Manley breaking the trend last time out, taking a win all the way back in season 30. I say all the way back, it wasn't too long ago, really. But George Morgan here, back on your screens. Joining me once again is the one, the only TK. Tom Knight, welcome back, Tom.
Oh, it's so good to be back. And what a circuit we're really back at this evening. They do not call Qatar a roller coaster for nothing.
No, they certainly don't. It's going to be a blistering ride. But TK, we got to digest what we saw last time because, of course, we've arrived at a point where Jarno Opmeer sits 13 points clear at the top of the championship. He got 3rd place last time, but only because of the steward's decision afterwards that meant that Ismail Fassi was demoted from the win down to P9. Barry Burman, a winner this season here and once again in PSGL.
Absolutely. And again, another win that's decided, or another victory that's decided in the steward's room. It's one that seems to be a bit of a trend at the moment. I'll leave that up to the viewers as to whether that's for better or for worse. But you never know. You're never going to discount the fact that you got a race win here in PCF1.
No, not at all. Just to give you guys the breakdown, like I said, 13 points between Jarno Opmeer and Frederick Rasmussen. We will, of course, look at the standings. In fact, why don't we take a little bit of a look now? This is how they currently look. There is Jarno Opmeer, top of the tree on 89 points, ahead of Frederick Rasmussen on 76. Barry Burman, after the win, it now pushes him well and truly into 3rd place, 9 points clear of Otis Lawrence. And then further back, Ulas Azildarim, still, of course, running well this season, especially after the win at China earlier on in the campaign, his first ever PSGL victory. Ismail Fassi down in 6th now this time. Obviously no win. It was only 2 points accrued off the back of that last venture around Jeddah. Of course, the win taken off him due to a matter concerning in the steward's room. Then we have Longay down in 7th, just behind him Alfie Butcher, Thomas Ronhar in P9, Julian Klaffenbach. Has been an underwhelming campaign for Kick Sauber so far, but they have had their issues. Pedreño in P11, Crozen in 12th, who picked up a really decent points finish last time and is looking to go strong once again. Alvaro Caraton in 13th, Berejne in 14th, Tormala 15th ahead of Benham, and Ido Manley, of course, last time a race winner at this circuit, with Duncan Hoffland sitting in 19th. This Van Pookie still down in 20th place. Only 4 points accrued. Mercedes still having concerns off the back of last season. Here is how the team standings look. It is Red Bull dominant here so far this season. 165 points in their back pocket, owing to the brilliant season that both Jarno Opmeer and Freddie Rasmussen have had. 4 wins for Freddie this season and 1 win for Jarno Opmeer. But Jarno has been more clinical in other races where Freddie has not. Of course, Freddie's only venture on the podium has only been for the race wins. He did not score at Brazil at the opening race of the season. Jarno got a P2, and of course later on in the campaign as well, where he got pole at Spa, he of course only managed to net 5 points, and the same at Jeddah, and a non-scorer at China as well. And Jarno has picked up, of course, P3s on those occasions, and also the win at Spa at the same time. So that has led to the difference between the two in the driver standings, but they are still doing wonders for Red Bull. Ferrari in second, just looking to lurch forward, trying to certainly form their best form, essentially. Barry now coming off the back of last round with a win. That could very easily change the season. Of course, it was technically a 1-2 for the Scarlet Superstars, where Fassi and Barry Burman managed to secure 1 and 2, but later, of course, Fassi losing it in the stewards' room. Alpine down in third. Of course, they've had their own little moments of issues and things such as that. We look back at Zandvoort, the pit lane causing chaos for them through the course of this campaign, and they're just looking for something just to turn the screw for them as well, though Otis Lawrence has been brilliant in terms of podium hunting so far this campaign. V-Carb down in fourth as well. Ulas Yildirim, as I said before, already a race winner this season for the first time. Kick Sauber need to find something. Klaffenbach has shown shades of brilliance. Thomas Ronhaar not necessarily performing to the best that we have expected to see based on what we've seen in the past, but we'll see whether he can muster something before the end of the season. We have McLaren down in sixth, Aston Martin in seventh, Williams in eighth, Haas in ninth, and Mercedes still trying to find their very best as well. It's been a tough time for Mercedes. Remember, multi-time teams champions here in PSGL, but since the departure of Jarno Opmeer and Danny Berejnay, things have turned rather sour for the Mercedes team. Just a little reminder as well in terms of tonight's grid. Otis Lawrence and Josh Edo stepping in for Alpine, and Duncan Hoffland and Joni Tormler in Aston Martin, Ishmael Fassi and Barry Burman at Ferrari, Reese Linton and Joris Krozen at Haas, Thomas Ronhaar, Julian Klaffenbach at Kick Sauber, Alvaro Caraton, Ruben Pedreño at Williams, Tom Manley, Ulas Yildirim at RB, then Jarno Opmeer, Frederick Rasmussen at Red Bull, Tamas Gal and Fabrizio Donoso mark their returns as well for the first time at Mercedes, and Jake Benham and Alfie Butcher line up at McLaren as well. And in terms of where we are tonight, folks, we are now venturing around the Losail International Circuit. 5.380 kilometres, 3.343 miles with 16 turns. Plenty for you all to enjoy around this circuit that opened up on the 30th of September 2004, over 20 years ago, and only twice before have we raced here, with Lucas Blakely taking a pole back in season 34 and Brendan Lee, former two-time F1 Sim Racing World Champion, and of course the original, back in 2017, F1 Sim Racing World Champion, winning here in season 34. Of course, now retired Brendan Lee. Jarno Opmeer took pole here last season in season 38. Tom Manley, though, taking the win on the night. This is a track that could very much throw up some thrills and spills, that's for sure. But TK, coming here to Qatar, it's not very often that you apply the brake pedal around this circuit, just given the runoff and the nature of how it performs.
Absolutely right. It's one of those circuits that, when you break down the fundamentals, is a fast-flowing circuit in the end. And we've got to think about what it was originally designed for. It was a MotoGP circuit. Those things don't particularly like using their brake pedal as much as they can, or their brake handle, I guess, if you want to look at it that way. But it was a track that was designed to encourage flowing through the corners, carrying that higher speed. And actually, now that we've transitioned to seeing the modern day Formula One cars there, it is just a spectacle when they race.
It certainly is. And you might have noticed as well, folks, we're still pursuing with the multiplayer cars due to concerns of lack of equal performance. So that is why we are using the multiplayer car for qualifying. But fear not, we will be going back into the official cars for the race, just to make sure that the teams that are taking part in the series have both drivers that are using the same pit lane, or the same grid pit boxes in the pit lane, so that we avoid any, shall we say, unintentional double stacking as such. So as we now watch as Reese Linton comes into the pits, that is why you're not seeing the familiar liveries that you would tend to see. But a big thank you for all of you tuning in. We do appreciate you all for your company. Back again for another PSGL broadcast. And it's been a brilliant season, TK. Highly competitive.
Absolutely, and one that quite often we don't know which way the races are going to go. You sometimes have seasons that you can predict the champion right from the very start, you can predict a race winner week in, week out, but it's been one of those seasons that you just are not able to tell, even after qualifying, because the race sometimes flips itself on the head right at the very last time of asking. Heck, even we've had races decided in the stewards' room, which was somewhat unpredictable. And if we even want to go down the route of, the penalties and the issues for predicting it'll be Alpine with the pit lane quarrels, it's just one that you can't decide.
No, certainly is not. We've still got 13 minutes and 43 or so to go until the session comes to an end. So in the initial, we're seeing the drivers setting laps on the intermediate tyre. Obviously, nothing has been registered on the top of the timing screen, as we now see as Fabrizio Donoso gets wheeled back into the garage. Of course, Josh Edo just joining as well. Obviously, he's having some late issues towards the start of the session. He'll hope that he can stay in the session this time, though. He can't afford any problems coming into play. In terms, though, of prior results so far this season, TK, again, I'm going to go back to Kick Sauber. What's going on there? Because this, of course, are two teammates. Klaffenbach, no question, has proven his worth as a member of this team. Ronha, we associate from being or featuring up inside the top 5 frequently, if not that, but also, you know, getting at least a podium, maybe even a race win. We haven't really had much of that, and certainly no wins for Thomas Ronha. It just seems to be a season of I don't want to say he's fallen off, but it doesn't look good.
No, it really doesn't. And I think, to echo what you were saying, it's almost a season of mediocrity at the moment for the Saubers, where, you know, we've expected bright things from both these drivers, albeit for different reasons. If you look at Ronha, you're expecting the battling, the nature, the aggressive driving that we're so used to with Ronha, in a situation where he wants to put those performances in and really come out fighting for the new season. And actually, we haven't seen that. And on kind of the flip side with Klaffenbach, a brand new driver wants to come in, make his mark, and really lay a name down, not only in PSGL, but in F1 esports as well. And again, it really hasn't been the season that he'd hoped for.
No, it certainly hasn't been, and that's been largely the issue. I mean, what do they need to do, TK, to kind of turn this around at this point?
I mean, is win a race an easy answer there? But
well, probably stating the bleeding obvious.
It's a tough one because the field is so competitive. It's not one that you are able to run a few laps and try and, you know, win a race or two after maybe 3 or 4 laps of effort. It is one that requires meticulous practice time and time again over days and days. And it's not just about that. You've got to have a little bit of luck on your side with others, maybe facing penalties, maybe making a few mistakes, but having that engineering background, the tyre strategies have to be spot on, the pit stops have to be spot on. You know, where they go for a send or a dive have to be perfect, because that's where you get these moves done. You don't want to sit in the train. You don't want to go for a rogue strategy like we've seen with Ronha and Klaffenbach this season, because sometimes we've seen them pit really in the early stages and actually it hasn't paid off for them.
No, it hasn't. I think obviously this is something they need to work on the understandings. For those of you wondering why we're flicking between the analysis and, of course, the comm screen, I've had an update on my team telemetry, so I'm trying to see the live times coming through. Unfortunately, it changed all my UDP telemetry settings, so I've had to put it back to normal. But we are now getting the feeds now, so we can tell you who's going purple and who's doing what as it stands. 10 minutes and 35 to go. At the moment, of course, nothing being posted right now, but I do want to say, folks, that we at PSGL are proud to have a new partner, of course, to our championship, and it's brilliant to have them as well. Sim Racing Setups, be sure to check them out as well, folks. A very proud partner now of PSGL, so be sure to check them out and stay up to date with all the new setups that come through. They're working very closely with the F1 sim racing talents and drivers, so therefore you get some really good information at the same time, some setup systems that can certainly propel your own pace as well, perhaps, or just perhaps open up a few more avenues for you as you look to enhance your own driving experience on the F1 game. So please do check that out. And of course, don't forget at the same time, check out social media at Premier Sim GL on Twitter and Instagram. Also TikTok as well. We have some plenty of areas for you guys to interact and get updates into, you know, how the championship is operating. Also latest news on standings and movements as well around the paddock. So please make sure you check that out. And also you can join the Discord as well. I can see that Connor's already alerted many of you that might want to stay up to date with all the penalties that are out there as well. You can check that data out as well on that Discord feed. So be sure to join the Discord, and maybe you'd want to get involved in some racing as well at the same time. But as I say that now, we've got drivers venturing out into the pits. Soft tyres now buckled to the chassis as well. Tom Knight, we're about to get proper qualifying underway.
Certainly are. We've only waited, 9 minutes already? We're halfway through Q1. We're about to get some runs underway. Ladies and gentlemen, let's go qualifying.
Here we go. So there's Duncan Hoffland, who, of course, already wins the commentator's prize for getting into the lobby first, TK. I know that you were very happy with that.
Well, I'd like to see who's the most prompt driver each week. And actually, I must admit, week in, week out, it is pretty much Duncan Hoffman that's the first in the lobby. And it's something we like to see, them on time so we can start on time.
Yeah, it does make a difference. Obviously, Duncan Hoffman, only 3 times a points finisher so far this season. Took his first point back at Texas. Since then, obviously, it was a P7 finish at Suzuka. And then after that, an 8-point finish at Suzuka. And it was, or an 8th place finish at Suzuka. It was 2 points he managed to obtain back at Spa, which was the 9th place finish on that occasion. But it hasn't been, necessarily top 5 friendly for Duncan Hoffman, who has been part of the Aston Martin fold for such a long time, TK.
He certainly has, and he's one of those drivers that has taken that step up in the last year and a half, 2 years, to join what is their main rostrum, to start putting in the performances, both in leagues like PSGL, but also in the wider sim racing community as well. And it hasn't been, again, the best of dream starts. It's always tough going into a new game, especially on F1 25, where the tyre wear is different, let's put it that way. So they've got to learn to adjust and overcome those issues and deal with how the cars drive and battle against one another. It's never going to be an easy feat, especially against a field as talented as this, but you've got to turn up, you've got to put the performances. But I still see big things for Duncan.
Yeah, I think so as well. Definitely has a lot of promise. We've seen it before. Of course, with his efforts in the PlayStation side, was involved in a hefty title battle on the PlayStation side of things, on console championships in PSGL, facing off against the likes of Wilson Hughes, who of course races for the McLaren Shadow team. Of course, Wilson came out on top in those exchanges, as we now watch as Ismail Fassi makes his way through the left-hander, coming out of turn 6. And then coming up through towards turn 7 now, be looking to open up a potential door for a decent lap, just to lay down a benchmark before we head into the final few minutes of this Q1 session. Purple in the first sector now for Tamascal at the moment. Ismail Fassi, 29.704. In fact, just over a tenth and a half slower than Tamascal in the first sector. The man who's just invalidated, in fact, as well, is Joni Tormala. So not a great visit for him, as now we keep our eyes peeled on Ismail Fassi. Purple in the middle sector this time for Barry Burman. Of course, last time out's race winner, inheriting the race win off this particular driver that we're watching on screen right now, Ismail Fassi, who now makes his way through the final corner and up towards the line. We'll wait and see as to whether Fassi will be able to hold his own up at the very top. Of course, more times to be ferried on in, and it will be Duncan Hoffman who beats past him. What about Barry Burman? Goes second fastest with a 120.1 TK.
Yeah, lots of purple sectors coming in. We've got, I believe, down in Ulas Azilra in purple middle sector, Thomas Ronha, purple first, Pedrenio coming out of nowhere, getting a purple third. So they are really starting to find some times early on.
They certainly are. Pedrenio with a 120.054. We're just waiting for more to come across the line. Of course, Josh Ido into second as well at the same time. Ulash Azilrim, the winner back at China. Now goes first fastest. Alfie Butcher second fastest. Thomas Ronha, he clearly has taken what we said personally. First fastest here in Q1 thus far with 5 minutes and 30 to go. A 119.966, and only 2 have managed to rumble in a 119. Ulash Azilrim being the second.
Yeah, lots of time still on the table for quite a few of our drivers here. They're setting green sectors, obviously faster than they've been already. Freddie Rasmussen coming out of nowhere, setting a purple in the third sector, as I was watching with Jarno Otmir. Got very, very loose through the exit of turn 15 and completely ruined his run. Yeah,
unfortunately, this is really going to hamper him. He's actually invalidated the lap, so he won't be improving on this run. But it's Frederick Rasmussen back again on top with a 119.870. Not a bad return for Freddie as Josh Ido leaves the session again. And I tell you what, I hope he won't be having that plaguing him right through the course of the evening, because he currently sits 7th fastest. No problems with the pace on Josh Ido, but if the technology fails him, it could be a troubling night.
It certainly could. Apologies, I had my mic muted there. And we've seen technical issues, hardware issues be a bane for drivers over a number of seasons, over a number of careers as well, because you could have the most perfect setup ready to go, as we well know as a broadcasting sort of aspect to the league. You can have everything set up perfectly. You log on for that final time, the real show, as you want to call it, and everything just goes wrong.
Yeah, well, there you go. Can't afford to make a mistake. And with Qatar especially, the runoff is plentiful, and it's not runoff you want to take most of the time, because it just feels so simple, doesn't it? It feels so easy to leave your foot planted on the throttle sometimes, just to generate that little bit of extra speed out to the apex, but it will go against you if you're caught going astray over those white lines. But Frederick Rasmussen not having such a problem. In fact, the sector times promising him a 1:19. Thomas Ronar also joining the 1:19 club at the same time too. So we've got 3 drivers all in the 1:19s, with Alvaro Carreton just under 19 thousandths away from hitting the 1:19 mark, and is also equally ahead of Alfie Butcher, only by 7 thousandths of a second. Minute gaps between each and every single driver. An early retirement there from Alfie Butcher there, TK. Obviously seems confident. I think he has every right to be, and as a result, Ulas Isildur, Alvaro Carreton and Alfie Butcher and Ruben Pedreño doing the same.
Yeah, very, very understandable. Sat in P5 at the moment on low 120. You've got to remember as well, there's 3 drivers that essentially are taking themselves out of qualifying already. So there's only 2 other drivers that will be knocked out after the times start to come in. You are going to be very confident, naturally, that you're not going to slip away right at the final time of asking. So obviously they can have a little bit of security in the opening stages of Q1.
Yeah, obviously all quiet at the moment in the pit lane. So, well, as they say that, they're going to go straight back out again. So sit tight. We're going to see the final runs come into play thick and fast. We've only got 2 minutes and 40 to go, and that can very easily dissipate under the formation, well, I say formation lap, under the out lap at this moment. Frederick Rasmussen also retiring from the session. We've lost Tom Manley and Jake Benham and Otis Lawrence. Of course, the Benham and Lawrence ones, obviously quali bans, I believe, that have come into effect. Lawrence obviously out of this particular session. Tom Manley, last season's winner, won't be fronting a lap time here either. So that leaves Duncan Hoffland, Burraman, Klaffenbach, Linton, as well as Tamas Gal, Joris Krozen, Fabrizio Donoso, Ismail Fassi, and of course Jarno Opmeer and Joni Tormela. I tell you what, Opmeer can't afford another mistake here, TK. He's in the drop zone.
He certainly can't. He's got to get it perfect. Obviously, we've got just under 2 minutes left on the clock. It's only going to be enough time, realistically, for one push run. And as much as there's only 2 drivers going to get eliminated, if you make a mistake, you will be one of those 2.
Yeah, you will ultimately pay the price, and that's certainly not what you want, as we now watch the drivers make their way around the circuit. At the moment, we do have, of course, the cars dressed up in the black livery. Tamas Gal, of course, lining up tonight in the Mercedes, and now leading, of course, at the moment, Fabrizio Donoso around the circuit. So the 2 Mercedes drivers aligned in their efforts in pursuing a decent final run. They've got plenty of clean air in amongst them, so they shouldn't have any interruptions as they look to register this final flying lap before the end of the session here in Q1. Of course, then 2 more sessions to come, and eventually we'll come down to a top 10 shootout to decide pole position as we now get ready for those final runs this time. Here comes Tamas Gal across the line, and the timer starts ticking. Josh Edo has just rejoined back into the session as well. He's of course already retired from the session. He'll be hoping that no one else improves and drops him to below 15th place here in Q1. And we know that that can very easily happen in this grid, TK, because fine margins always exist between these drivers.
They certainly do, and sometimes it is the barest of margins that you see drivers scraping through right at the end, because the track evolution, the tyres getting warmer. I mean, if you look at the track temperature at the moment, only 22 degrees, so by all standards, still rather cold out there.
Yeah, as we now watch Tamas Gal make his way around the sequence through turn 7 and later turn 8. And at the moment, not currently seeing the times register on my telemetry at the moment. We will keep you posted, folks, as soon as the first sector does come through. At the moment, still solid green at the moment. This is based on their last previous best runs. It's a 29.5 I'm seeing in that first sector at the moment. 29.548, 26.757 inside the middle sector. So Tamas Gal just looking to bundle his way higher up inside the top 10 just to protect himself, to at least place himself perhaps higher than Edo or something like that. Of course, with the ability to go out again, they should get better track conditions at this moment, as we now watch Tamas Gal go second fastest. That will almost secure safety at this very late stage. Duncan Hoffland coming through as well. Barry Burraman has gone third fastest. Tormela down in 8th as well. There is Duncan Hoffland, and Klaffenbach is going slowly. Looks like his day is done. Here comes Rhys Linton. At the same time, Krozen is currently down in 14th and will not improve from there, so he's in trouble. Linton goes second fastest. We now await others to cross the line. Also featuring further up the rostrum, we have Ismail Ishmael Fassi going into 10th. We're now watching Crozer make his way around. What about Julian Klaffenbach? He's going slowly. We mentioned him before. Jarno Opmeer, certainly the last one we need to keep an eye on because he's coming around the final corner, currently sat in the drop zone, and now looking to register a time to withstand the pressures of being eliminated, and he will go third fastest. Jarno Opmeer, enough to move through to Q2 and then some. Pops in behind Reese Linton and ahead of Tamas Gal. Safety for the Flying Dutchman, making the most of the optimal temperatures at the end of the session, and it's enough to keep him in qualifying by some way. Let's run through the results off the back of that first session. Frederick Rasmussen quickest, Reese Linton in second. Great session for Reese Linton. Jarno Opmeer into third ahead of Tamas Gal. Then comes Barry Burraman, Thomas Ronhaar, Ulas Azildarim, Alvaro Caraton, Alfie Butcher, Yoni Tormala, Ishmael Fassi, Fabrizio Donoso, Ruben Pedreño, Josh Edo, then Duncan Hoffland, Julian Klaffenbach, Joris Krozen, Tom Manley, Jake Benham, Otis Lawrence, of course, the bottom 5 out of the session. So Klaffenbach, Krozen, Manley already out, Benham as well, Lawrence out as well. 2 of those places up at the top of the elimination zones, the only ones that could set laps through the course of qualifying. So there we have it. We have got our 15 drivers making their way through to the next session now in Q2. So it's all going to come down to this. They're all going to be chasing a top 10 spot, TK, to get through to the shootout for the quest for pole. The question is, out of what we've seen, who has stood out the most?
It's going to be a question, isn't it? Because there's so many right answers in that sort of miniature aspect that you propose. I mean, you could even look at the likes of Ronhaar, who got up towards the top end. Are we seeing the form that we are expecting to see kind of starting to creep back on him? Are we expecting a good performance here in Qatar? Who knows? We've still got 15 drivers to knock down to 10, but I'm thinking for big things for Ronhaar here this afternoon.
He needs one as well, and I think he knows. I think he knows that. I think ultimately ahead of everything else. But we've now got some movements inside the garages as we get set for the drivers to make their way out. Freddie Rasmussen, of course, former F1 Sim Racing World Champion, and back on top spot. Reese Linton, though, arriving in on the scene. Rasmussen leaving, as is everyone else. And all of a sudden, a busy pit box turns into a busy pit lane, and very shortly a busy circuit. As now the drivers come out nose to tail and rejoin the track at hand. Ruben Pedreño will be the first driver to make his way through turn 1 in the Williams. And it's been a strong showing from our Williams partnership, I must say. The 2 Spaniards, Ruben Pedreño and Alvaro Caraton, they haven't had a bad campaign, TK.
No, and I think it'll be one that they can take on the nose and really start to build on in a greater aspect as we head into those proposed LAN events that are still far off relatively in the future. But it's always a strong foundation when you get these events right, these leagues right, because it gives you so much confidence, so much the pressure is off as you head in towards the preparations for the big events, because you know you can go out there and perform.
Yeah, definitely do. 13 minutes and 46 on the clock, plenty of time to register 2 laps in the session here in Q2. Of course, Red Bull, that's the team to beat at the moment. Frederick Rasmussen and Jarno Opmeer have been leading them to the top of the championship. Of course, Jarno formerly with Mercedes, formerly with Alfa Romeo as well. Won a world championship with Mercedes. Won a championship, his first title at Alfa Romeo. Of course, I'm not talking about PSGL at that point. I'm talking about the F1 Sim Racing World Championship. But of course, he did go on to win many championships in PSGL with Mercedes, starting all the way back in season 27 and right through to season 30. Took a little bit of a hiatus from winning titles as Lucas Blakely came in season 31. Barry Burraman the following season, winning it in the stewards room after his contest with Thomas Ronhaar. And then Jarno winning it season 34, 36 and 38. 6 times a PCF1 champion and looking to make it a magic number 7. And if he stays on top where he is, he certainly is going to do that if he carries on. We're now underway for the next sequence of flying laps. And Pedreño, the first to set one, he's making his way through the first sector.
He certainly is. They've got to get this opening banker right because they want to have that delta, the progression that follows for laps 2 and laps 3, especially at this sort of stage. It's not the fight for pole yet. We've still got a whole nother qualifying to come, but they still don't want to be in amongst the pack when this race starts. 15th down to, up to 10th place is a bit of an awkward place to start because you've got a lot of people in front of you, but essentially nowhere to drop back to either. You're under pressure, realistically, from the start.
Bertie Ryan, to answer your comment, he may be a 7 times world champion, but I said PCF1, not PlayStation as well. If you listen to what I said, it was 6 times world champion in PCF1. So that's what we're talking about here at this moment, because this is the championship. But yes, you are correct. A 7-time overall PSGL champion, if you want to count PlayStation as well. As we now watch as Pedreño makes his way around the final corner. Unfortunately, he's invalidated, so he will not be looking to post an improved time. Ismail Fassi with a purple middle sector with a 26.847. That's just been ripped away by Thomas Ronhaar, who's looking pretty strong right now. But Duncan Offlin sets the fastest time with a 120.2. 5-5. Thomas Gal now goes to the top, but Thomas Ronhaar, after going purple in the middle, will look to try and rip it away from them as they come around the final corner and up towards the long straight and take the start-finish line. Let's see, 120.047. Rasmussen back on top though, once again showing his form and prowess over one single lap as they now fly in towards turn 1 yet again. We now wait for others to cross the line also. Jana Watmere, of course, not yet registering a flying lap just yet. In fact, invalidating that first run. Ismail Fassi making his way into the box. So a few issues for some drivers out there, TK. And as we now watch Ruben Pedreño continue around again through the first sector.
Yeah, it looks like Linton and Fassi may have had incidents on their first runs. I believe both of them certainly having either issues with the run that they were on, deciding to dive in and maybe hope for a little bit of saving graces in the second and third runs. Obviously, Josh Ito, after facing what we can only describe as connection issues, hardware issues in the first qualifying, manages to find his way through, has yet to leave the pits because of whatever issues seem to be plaguing him at the moment.
Yeah, well, Pedreño now also an invalidation here on this particular lap, so you can just see how much they are struggling with that runoff as we now wait for others to cross the line. Jana Watmere coming straight into the pits, will not be setting another lap after that first invalidation. Obviously a carbon copy of what we saw in Q1, but now into the pits comes Jana Watmere. His teammate though, Frederick Rasmussen, really solid start for Freddie, who has gone now 3 races without a race win here, TK.
Yeah, it's an unusual turn of events that we're seeing at the moment. He'll be one that will obviously bounce back and will always have those bounce back factors to find himself back up, not only on a podium but on the top for race wins. The question will be when, not if, because we almost are certain that it's going to be inevitable.
Yeah, well, now we're seeing a very busy team of pit crews, and if you're wondering the reason why we are using the multiplayer cars in qualifying, it is due to an equal performance issue, but we can't use them in the race, and the reasons being are for the reasons you are quite rightly seeing, because you've got basically a Kick Sauber and Freddie's Red Bull. Of course it's brown, but obviously we know Freddie's in a Red Bull, obviously being wheeled into the garage, but they all share boxes, so it's tricky. You can't do it during an actual race, because otherwise it really makes things difficult for the drivers, because they don't know who they're sharing a box with, by and large. So that's the issue that many of them are facing. So we're now going to be moving into the real life cars when the time comes as we move into racing. So that's basically what's happening. And unfortunately for TK, he's going to have to reset the lobby again when the time comes. A job you love, TK.
Oh, absolutely. I wake up first thing on a Wednesday morning and go, you know what, I get to do the lobbies again for PSGL here this afternoon. And genuinely, I am on edge for the rest of the day because I know I get to do it.
Yeah, no, it's a privilege for all of us to witness you do it as well. You do it so well. Ismail Fassi making his way out onto the track, and an outlap underway here for Fassi. Of course, bursting onto the scene, I suppose I should say, to quote the great Roy Keane. When venturing into F1 sim racing for the very first time, really made a name for himself at Williams, and it didn't take too long before a team like Ferrari took notice, signing him now to join Barry Burramand, taking Nicolas Longuet's place. We're not sure what's happening with Nicolas Longuet just yet in terms of his professional choice of team. I know that he has still been working with the grassroots teams that race in the F1 sim racing space, in the, of course, the leagues and their organised competitions they take part in. Obviously, Longuet's still a strong talent that is obviously deserving of a spot. We'll wait and see where he does go. And that's if, of course, he does get one, TK, obviously.
Well, absolutely. No seat is ever guaranteed, and I think our drivers know that probably more than anyone at the moment. It can go from having a seat to not having a seat quite often in the blink of an eye. If a contract's not renewed or you have a bad season, you can quite often find yourself without somewhere to sit.
No, that's quite right. Ismail Fassi, though, this time will be the first to lay down a lap here at the start of, well, I said the start of Q2, we're now with 7 minutes to go. Time just really flies here in PSGL PCF1 as we now watch as Fassi squirms through the next left-hander out of turn 2 and then turn 3 and down a semi-straight towards turn 4 around this 5.419 kilometre length circuit. That's 3.367 miles. As we now see a 29.6 registered by Ismail Fassi right at the start of this lap. Of course, yet to nail a time down. Only the top 9 so far have registered their first laps here in the session now as we watch Fassi dig a little deeper, coming through the right-hander at turn 7. Then he's got turn 8 and turn 9 to come. Let's see where he can place himself. Obviously also part once of the Spanish contingent at Williams. But now coming through towards the latter sector this time. Now coming through the flying right-handers have turned 12, 13 and 14. And then down towards the final corner at the same time. In comes Fassi. And already a purple middle sector with a 26.552. Really strong venture through the mid part of the course here for Ismail Fassi as he now comes down towards the final corner. Let's see whether he can tip Freddie Rasmussen out of P1. Here he comes now, all dressed in red. And he will go fastest. And our first 119 of Q2, TK.
Yeah, into the 19s and immediately taken away. Well, no, it's not. Ignore me. I'm reading the completely wrong screen. Apologies. Linton goes up into second, Burmond into third as well, but into the 19s, which is going to be critical here.
It is going to be critical. There is Jarno Opmeer, of course, currently making his way around in 14th place at the moment. Josh Edo, unfortunately, going off. Edo off on his flying lap. Of course, Fassi went fastest initially. Butcher has gone second. Pedreño into third. Hofland into fourth. And Fabrizio Donoso down in fifth at the moment, which could be a big boon here for Mercedes, as now Caraton pops himself into fourth fastest. More improvements coming in, as now Ronha goes first fastest with a 1:19.706. That's now we're seeing a flurry of 1:19s. The top 10 all in the 19s at the moment, as we now await more drivers to come across the line for some of them, the first time. Jarno Opmeer being one of those. Third fastest for the Flying Dutchman as we await others to come through as well. But Josh Edo, the only driver now not setting a time, clearly having problems here in the session as Freddie goes fastest once again. A 1:19.609 to go nearly a whole tenth quicker, 97 thousandths to be precise, ahead of Thomas Ronha.
Well, that's just an incredible lap. Let's not beat around the bush here. It was so close, second through third. Originally, before Freddie even put that lap down, it was talking the closest of margins, about 4 thousandths of a second between Ronha and Fassi. And then Rasmussen comes out, does what he does best, and sets a lap that has just obliterated that close gap at the top.
Yeah, well, it's Freddie in control. And I must say, when we factor in the grid that we do have here in PSGL, having a gap at the top that stretches to 97 thousandths may as well be a whole second. It may as well be 2 seconds clear, because that is just how close these drivers operate. The difference of 97 thousandths could be between elimination and also making your way through to the next session. We've seen that time on time. I can tell you that the gap between P14 and P1 right now is just over 3.5 tenths of a second, which is minute really in the grander context of things. Obviously, we have had narrower in the past, most notably inside the top 5s, for example. I can tell you that the top 3 are separated or are within near enough a tenth of a second. In fact, a thousandth out of being within a tenth of a second. So that is how close they are right now. But it's a 1:19.609 that has been set in place by Freddie Rasmussen, and I'm sure he'd be delighted with that. Currently sat at the top of the tree as he was coming out of Q1. What are your thoughts, TK?
Sorry, my apologies. Again, running with my mic muted while I'm trying to sort stuff in the background. I'm so sorry, people at home. I was doing some research in the background, and I've got a fact that I wanted to share. I was fact-checking before I went out and said it to several thousand people. The average human blink is about 1 to 400 milliseconds of a second. About 1 to 4 tenths of a second, if you want to put it into F1 terms. The top 14 of this grid are within a human blink of a second. Literally, at the moment, it's blink and you miss it.
That is exceptional, TK. Obviously, but factually correct, obviously. Brilliant. I mean, that just goes to show the sheer brilliance of the drivers we do have here. Of course, all of them competing at the highest level in the F1 Sim Racing World Championship. And you're absolutely spot on. I mean, it is just those minute gaps. And when you put it into an illustrative picture of just a sheer blink is the difference between one driver to another, it just exacerbates just how great these talents really are.
It really, really does. And I think often we see these drivers go out and put these such close margins between all of them, and you go, oh, that's a close margin in Formula One terms, you know, half a second, 0.3, blah, 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 blah. But when you put it into something that you can physically understand, you put that correlation between something in the virtual world or something in racing and something that most people, you and I, can really compare a time to, that's when you start to realise just how close these margins are.
Yeah, they are really, really, really narrow. Really, just to put it in a picture for you. At the moment, the top three, as I said, just over 1/10 of a second apart. And although we're all within 1/10 of a second pretty much, outside of that, of course, the man in P4, Jarno Opmeer, nearly 2/10 out, and already Freddie Rasmussen retiring from the session, and for an understandable reason and cause. And Ron Haar remains in the session, going for another outlap, but Ismail Fassi decided to bring an end to his. And I would suggest if you are in the 1:19 6s or 7s, TK, I would imagine you'll be okay.
Yeah, 6, 7s, maybe the low 8s as well. We're not quite sure where that cutoff's going to stand. I'd roughly, on an educated guess and a little bit of experience standing there, between 6th and 7th is probably where I'm going to put that cutoff at the moment. Anyone below, I think is going to have to improve.
Yeah, well, we run on board now with Tamas Gal coming through the first corner. Needs a major lap here, Tamas Gal. Of course, currently sat down in 14th place right now, and over 3.5 to 3 3/4 tenths away from Freddie Rasmussen. As we just watch as Gal now flies through the sequence of right-handers before then peppering the left-hand side of the course. A lap round here goes very quickly, despite it being a relatively long track on the calendar. Certainly not as long as Spa, but you know, certainly not short by any means. As now Tamas Gal makes his way downhill, looks down on the track map through turns 8 and then later turns 9. And then flying out of the apex now as he looks to climb up this next segment towards turn 12, where he'll enter sector 3. Then a sequence of right-handers through towards turn 13, 14 and 15, before then reaching the final corner on this lap. This hairpin, though, could be decisive. It is a hairpin of sorts, but you can almost leave your foot planted right on the throttle. Here comes now Tamas Gal, down through towards the final corner at turn 16 this time. And now up towards the line. Can he jump from P14? Is it going to be enough here for Tamas Gal? It will be! Second place here for Tamas Gal, and a great response here, TK. We got Barry Burmand also looking to improve. A 1:19.957 turns into a 6:68, and third fastest for Barry.
Yeah, fantastic laps coming in and all amongst the grid at the moment. No one is safe. Hoffland goes quicker with a 19.5 at the moment. No one saw that coming.
No, they certainly did not. What about the rest of them, though? Reese Linton looking to improve as well. Will remain 14th, so Linton the first casualty of the session so far. It's Hoffland, Rasmussen, Butcher, Gal, Burmand at the moment, sat inside the top 5. Here comes Azildarim. Big shocks. He's out as well. And Donoso, oh my goodness, Fabrizio Donoso in the gravel has invalidated his run, and that's going to bring an end to his session. It registered as an outlap as far as we can see, but kiss that outlap goodbye, because not only does he invalidate the current run, but also the next one, TK.
Wow, what a qualifying we've just seen. I don't think anybody expected what can only be described as drama right at the final time of asking.
Yeah, well, Duncan Hoffland, fastest of anybody here in the session, at 1:19.564, 45 thousandths of a second, with Freddie Rasmussen locked in second place, with Alfie Butcher third, Tamas Gal in fourth, grand recovery on his part 2, with Barry Burman down in fifth, Thomas Ronhaar 6th, Ismail Fassi 7th, Ruben Pedreño in 8th, Jarno Opmeer 9th, Joni Tormela makes it through inside the top 10 at the same time. Alvaro Caraton we say goodbye to, as well as Fabrizio Donoso, Ulas Azildarim, Reese Linton and Josh Edo, who didn't set a lap in that session. So there we are. That brings an end to Q2. We will, of course, be looking ahead to Q3 shortly, which is where the shootout will begin. The quest for pole position, and at the moment we have had plenty of options for pole, I must say. Though Freddie Rasmussen not sitting on top of the rostrum this time. It is Duncan Hoffland, of course, who goes fastest here on this occasion. But, you know, whilst it's not the Dutchman we're used to seeing on top, it's another one at the very least. And I must say, the Dutch drivers tend to come in thick and fast in the world of sim racing these days.
They certainly do. I don't know what they're feeding them over in the Netherlands, but I want some of it, please, because...
Well, Hayden Gullis wanted some of them.
I think he must have eaten the wrong thing, because at the moment he's going backwards.
That's very true. Very true. But no, honestly, Duncan Hoffling, you know, great effort on his part, TK. The results haven't always come regularly, but at the same time, when he does need it, he can sometimes pull, a real worldie out of the sessions. He does have that raw talent and ability.
It certainly does. And again, it's something that I was saying, I think literally earlier in the stream, we haven't seen it in a very long time. But actually, we really want to see it come back and really want him to make an effort and have those wins that he almost so deserves.
Yeah, well, we're currently watching Frederick Rasmussen make his way out onto the circuit here this time. 11 minutes and 28. We're now into the shootout. Let us know in the live chat, folks, who's going to win this one. Let us know as to who's going to grab pole position. We want to hear from you. And obviously at the moment, Freddie Rasmussen making his way out onto the circuit here in Q3. 11 minutes and 13 to go. We've got Ismail Fassi also heading out on an outlap at the same time. We've got Hofland, Otmir, Tamashgel, Ronha, Butcher, Tormala, Burremand and Pedreño all in the pits right now. And we'll wait and see as to who's going to rise to the top. Just seeing now Nathan Perret saying Freddie. So we've already got our first prediction coming through. Fred will get that, says Black X2. And what else have we got? Jarno says Paginator. Reckons that the Flying Dutchman's going to grab it. Jarno says Sahil Jain. Jarno says BB Plays. Rasmussen says Mathan Perret again. So yeah, keep us posted, guys. Want to hear from you. TK, where do you see this one going?
I'm going to make an early prediction, like I always like to do. We're going to go off the back of Q2. I think Hofland is going to be my prediction for this afternoon. I've got a couple of predictions from TikTok as well. I thought I'd keep them in the loop. We quite often,
yeah, of course.
I don't want to say ignore the chat, but it gets a little bit lost in translation. MUFC Lufa says, I think Thomas will win. And Quiet underscore Cake 7 says, I think Quiet underscore Cake 7 will get pole.
That's cool. I like Cake too. But as we now watch is Rasmussen making his way down through towards turn 1 to kick off the next session now as we watch him head down through towards turn 1. And feathering that throttle on the escape now as he looks to make his way through towards turn 2. The initial slalom before you hit turn 4. And we've got a red flag in the session, TK. What's going on?
Well, I've had a message come through. We're going to have a new lobby. Apparently, glitch issues is the cause and the correlation for what is going on. I have no idea how we're going to run a singular Q3 session.
Well, it's got to be a short quali, and everyone else, bar the current 10 we have got to retire, right?
I'm trying to read the driver's chat and figure out exactly where this is covered. Apparently, times are wrong in Q2, but I'm trying to understand what was happening.
Okay, interesting stuff. So we got an update for you, folks. We do have a red flag, apparently. Do appreciate Nicholas Longay letting us know. Apparently, short quali, everyone goes again. That's the latest news that we've got coming in from Nicholas Longay. Right, okay. So it must have been broken from the very beginning then, if that's the case. If we're going to be allowing everyone else. I thought perhaps it was just Q3 bugging out or something like that. But there we go. Looks like, folks, that brings an end to our qualifying broadcast for now. So in the meantime, you get us for the time being. So we'll do, we'll do whatever it takes to give you some entertainment before that time comes. In the meantime, we can of course go through some of the graphics, a few reminders as to what's happening in the world of PSGL. We're going to kick things off with the standings. As it stands, we have Jarno Otmir on 89 points at the close of the Saudi Arabian round. And then in second place, Freddie Rasmussen on 76. 13 points between the top two in the championship so far. We, of course, do have Barry Burremand sat in third on 59, 9 points ahead of Otis Lawrence. Ulas Ozildrim down in fifth as well on 37, 4 points clear of Ismail Fassi at this stage, with Longay down in seventh. And then we have Butcher, Ronhar, Klaffenbach, and Pedreño. Then we have Crozen, Caraton, Berejne, Tormala, Benham, Edo, Manley, Hofland, and Pookie rounding off the 20 cars. So there we have it. That's the current view on the driver standings as we have it. I mean, it has been a dominant Red Bull campaign so far, but if Ferrari start picking up results here, TK, they should be in a really good position.
They absolutely should be. It's been one that they've had a good start to the season and one that we can quite often see them carry through to the latter stages. Never say never, though, especially when we've had teams that have found form in the mid-season, managed to carry that through, and actually sometimes extend that even into the LAN events.
Update as well for Gary Marsden in the chat. We have had a red flag in the session, so we will not be showing any Q3. So we will be starting qualifying again, I would imagine, from short quali, and it'll be one whole session as delivered by Nicholas Longue in the live chat. So that's the current view on things. So if you're wondering why we're looking at the standings, this is why we're currently looking at it. I don't like it any more than you do, folks, honestly. Let's move on to the team standings. We have got 165 points here for the Red Bull team at the top of the shop in the teams. Ferrari in second on 92. Then we have Alpine on 61 in third. VCarb currently sit fourth on 44. Kick Sauber fifth on 40. McLaren in 6th on 36. Aston Martin in 7th on 34. Then we have Williams in 8th on 31. Haas in 9th on 17. And then we have in 10th place Mercedes, who have had a really tough season so far, down in 4th at the moment. Of course, those are the team standings as we now look ahead to tonight's round at Qatar at the same time. A little reminder of how the season's grid looks generally. Of course, these do chop and change through the course of the campaign. If drivers are unavailable, reserves do, of course, step in. Otis Lawrence and Danny Berejnay lining up for Alpine. Duncan Hoffland and Nicholas Longue lining up at Aston Martin. Barry Burman, Ishmael Fassi at Ferrari. We have Reece Linton and Joris Krozen at Haas. Then comes Thomas Ronhart and Julian Klappenbach at Kick Sauber. Alvaro Caraton and Ruben Pedreño at Williams. Tom Manley and Ulas Zilderim at RB. Then we have Jarno Opmeer and Frederick Rasmussen at Red Bull. Istvan Pukki and Lucas Blakely at Mercedes. Then we have Alfie Butcher and Jake Benham rounding off the rest of the rostrum in the McLaren. Moving onwards, this is tonight's grid. Obviously, quite a few changes coming into play. Josh Ito stepping in at Alpine alongside Otis Lawrence. We have Yoni Tormela joining Duncan Hoffland at Aston Martin. Elsewhere, Tamas Gal and Fabrizio Donoso stepping in to take cover of Mercedes for this particular round. So we wish them the very best of luck. Looks like the pace is on their side. Here is how the calendar looks with regards to this current campaign. We've gone through Brazil, Texas, Britain, Netherlands. We've had the first break week, and Japan, China, and Belgium. We've also seen off Jeddah in the second half of the season. We're currently on Qatar here for round 9. We've got a break week next week on October 1st, and then we head to Bahrain for round 10. We go down under to Australia out Melbourne on October 15th, then round 12 at Mexico City for October 22nd. Of course, these rounds are subject to change should there be issues with the particular circuit. Of course, Bahrain was another one of note at with the Turn 4 bump issue, which I know is apparently it could lead to a change of track for round 10. I will, of course, give you guys an update on that in due course as we make our way through the season campaign. Or you can have a look at social media as well at the same time, where you will be updated as to where we're going next. Vegas lines up for round 13 for October 29th, that being the penultimate round. And then Abu Dhabi on November 5th on fireworks night. So round 14, we will see the fireworks let off as we crown, hopefully, a champion on the final day. But we'll wait and see before that comes. But great to have such a high collective of fabulous tracks to race at. We'll look forward to seeing who's going to rise to the top here on this occasion in this season's championship. In terms of where we are here tonight, we are racing at Losail, home of the Qatar Grand Prix. 5.380 kilometres, 3.343 miles, 16 corners around this track, and was opened all the way back on the 30th of September 2004, over 20 years ago. And we always look forward to coming to race here. We've had 2 races in the past. Of course, the first one being won by 2-time F1 Sim Racing World Champion Brendan Lee, who's now retired, of course, folks. And Tom Manley, who won it last season after Jarno Opmeer took pole in season 38. I've just had a ping in my ear that tells me that apparently the lobby is up. TK has very kindly sent me one across, so we will be back bringing you some action very soon, folks. Do not fear. But in the meantime, we will, of course, have another qualifying session to bring you as well, just to make sure that we do have our grid all set up ahead of the race, which, again, is going to be another fine job for you, TK, to do when the time comes. I will try and cover you for that one.
I appreciate that. It's a fun one, I'll be honest, because at the moment, the arguing in the Discord is fun. I'm watching it. It's fun.
Do I dare look?
No, I wouldn't, because there's going to be about 250 messages to read from all the drivers.
Oh my, what is going on? Oh, right. Is it me?
No, they're all saying they're in your lobby, and I've had to tell them you didn't leave the old lobby.
Oh, right, okay.
And that's the glitched lobby that they've all claimed as glitched.
Oh, okay, right. Interesting. Goodness me, folks. I mean, I'm too busy trying to do a broadcast here. Come on. Can't do everything at once. But no, we're here anyway. No. It looks like there is a debate going on with regards to the situation here this evening. It is utterly bizarre. Do you know, I thought, honestly, we left a lot of the issues around the running of league racing on this game back in 2021, but clearly that is not a thing. I remember the old the desync days of before.
And good old days.
And my goodness, this takes me back. I'm not gonna lie to you, TK, and I'm not for the right reasons either.
No, it's. I must admit, I was a fan back then watching because I was never really into the whole talking about the races yet. But it was certainly a fun one as a spectator. I'll put it that way.
Wasn't fun for me, nor for Jack Canan either. We were both stressing over it that season. It was tragic. My goodness, it was hard to put a broadcast together at that time. It was a really tough time, but we're now experiencing some similar issues. Of course, now running the multiplayer cards, which obviously, you know, I miss the good old days before we had those issues. We used to be able to go straight from quali into the races. It was great. You know, those are the bliss years that we had on the F1 game. But clearly, it's not working here. We got Ishmael Fassi saying stop inventing in the F1 chat at the moment, so I'm seeing the messages unfold now on my screen, and it's truly bizarre. Incredible. Obviously a big shout out as well to our new partners, Sim Racing Setups as well. Great to have them. Obviously we are going to be doing qualifying, folks, back again in the multiplayer car. It's standard now. We're going to be running this right to the end of the season. Then after this, we're going to be moving into the real life cars ahead of the race to ensure that every single driver knows exactly what pit box they're going to be using, and they know which drivers are going to be sharing their pit box with. Of course, ideally their teammates that they've been nominated with for this season. But yeah, it's going to be great. So there's plenty of discussions here in the chat.
I've got a few questions sorted by the sounds of it.
Well, I'm having a look at this, and it's saying if quali is a problem again, says Connor, we will do race only, and grid will be in championship order. And Jarno's put in, for once, I completely agree. But, you know, I mean, credit to him for that, because obviously he knows that qualifying isn't his strong suit, and he knows that he's top of the championship, so he'd be on pole position by default for the race.
I've got a couple of questions in the that's the YouTube chat. I've got all three up at once. It's interesting. They're also Discord is saying invites to the game aren't working at the moment, but that's nothing to do with us. I'm going to answer the YouTube chat. I've been told I'm old. Yes, I have a birthday. Yes, I am old. But
I'm getting on a bit too, TK, to be honest with you. I'm older than you.
Wow, yeah, you are.
If you want to fund my retirement, folks, you can do. There's been some disputes in the live chat actually about whether I'm getting paid for this role or not. I'm telling you now, folks, I don't get paid. I do this out of the love of the sport. And I bet you're wondering, George, what love can you possibly have right now? I must say, I would be in agreement, but no, I do love it, and I love broadcasting for you lot every Wednesday night. It's a privilege, honestly. I've been doing this ever since, of course, well, way before we started doing season 27, the first season of PCF1. Of course, I'm going back to late 2017, early 2018 when I started broadcasting the F1 game, and but yeah, it's always been a privilege to do this, and I love doing it with the viewers as well. But yeah, it is a privilege, isn't it, TK, to do this every Wednesday?
It absolutely is, and it's one that I am extremely lucky to be able to.
Hang on a minute. I forgot this. It's your birthday, TK.
It was yesterday. Yeah.
Happy birthday, TK. Sorry, just literally, honestly, it just literally dawned on me. I meant to say earlier on because I saw your Instagram story. And I wanted to say happy birthday, TK, on the broadcast. So I'm going to say this now. Happy birthday, TK. I want to see happy birthdays in the chat, everyone.
Yeah, thank you. Are we wearing matching t-shirts? No, it just looks very similar on the camera. No, I had a fantastic day out today. I went down to South Devon Railway. It's an old vintage steam railway. They've restored and put back together through enthusiasts. I absolutely love my day there. But I've lost the message in the chat that I was going to answer because someone asked why we're doing.
Yeah, sorry, I put you off there, mate. I'm so sorry. I just had to say happy birthday. That's all.
No, thank you, genuinely, thank you everyone in the chat. This is kind of overwhelming. Someone said, can we explain why in quali they're not using normal liveries if they're equal points in the race anyway? Right. This is something we can explain, and I do my best to do it whilst we've got one driver missing from the lobby. The long and story short of it is, EA try to make the cars as equal as possible. The cars are, by design, slightly different aerodynamically. They've got different wheelbase lengths, so obviously there's certain elements that they have to try and adjust forwards and backwards to make them as equal as they can over a race circuit. Unfortunately, this means that some cars, by pure design and pure nature, take curbs better, some are slightly better in a straight line, but the idea being that over one single lap, they are as identical as possible. but it seems to be just because of how they take curbs and how they can attack certain corners. There is about a 33,000th of a second difference between some cars on the grid, which, if you remember earlier, we said a human blink is about 250 thousandths of a second. It's about a tenth of a second.
Yeah, you're talking crazy narrow gaps. I mean, I know that Wilson Hughes was actually in charge of testing every single car basically on the grid, and I think they came up with the data through that, and they noticed that obviously with it being one driver driving one car, they obviously noticed some small differences between each and every single car under an equal performance standpoint. So that's why we've gone down this route of using the multiplayer car by and large. I just saw as well, Enzo Dellini is in the live chat. For those of you wondering who Enzo Dellini is, he's a Formula Regional European Championship by Alpine driver for RSGP, and he is currently fighting for the championship at the moment. Had an incredible win last time out, I want to say, as well at Barcelona. Congratulations, by the way, Enzo, on that. Obviously, I see Enzo around the paddock a lot with the Freca Championship, but he's in the fight for the championship against Freddie Slater, as well as Matteo De Parlo, and also Pedro Clero, which is, phenomenal. We've got a massive four-way tussle for the title. And at the moment, it's De Parlo and Slater level on points, and in Ps 3 and 4, they're level on points as well, Dellini and Clero. So it is so tight right now. I do, of course, wish Enzo Dellini the best of luck. Thank you for joining us in the live chat here this evening. Of course, these are drivers that are going to be moving up, we believe, to FIA Formula 3. Obviously, I'm not going to go out there and say where Enzo's going, or if he knows where, or people know where he's going just yet. Obviously, that is all going to be brought out. I know there's been a lot of speculation on Twitter, with regards to all of this, but we do, of course, wish those drivers the very best, and great having Enzo along with us. You'd be surprised, actually, a lot of the Freca drivers are PSGL viewers, TK. So they love watching the show. So we appreciate all of them for joining us. We are now underway for quali again, so we should hopefully, finally, crown a pole sitter.
Tom Manley's qualifying.
Well, he's turned up for this one then, clearly.
Well, he's had his dinner. He's had his plate cleaned.
Yeah.
He's gone, you know what, I'm going to go out this time.
I might actually go and do some work this time. I mean, this is a track that he's won at before, so if there's any place where you're going to have confidence, it's got to be this one. So we'll wait and see as to whether Tom Manley's going to raise the stakes here and place himself in provisional P1, or indeed P1 as a whole, when the timer ticks to 0. Of course, it's short qualifying to take us to the end of this one, folks, and then we'll decide as to who's starting where ahead of the race coming up now shortly. So sit tight, it's going to be a busy one. Manley will, as it stands, be the first driver to register a timer onto the board. And it's important to know that there are plentiful amounts of soft tyres out there on circuit. Only one driver on Inters, because Freddie Rasmussen's a Maverick. Yes, he's on the green wall tyre.
Oh, it's certainly one that always keeps us entertained up here in the commentary box, because he always goes for a slightly more unusual strategy than the rest of them. One thing I did want to quickly just point on before we get into the fast and furious elements of qualifying. I did see Kevin Balaz in the chat, who's done a lot of testing, a lot of modding with equal cars. He just put a comment in saying main issue is plank position and weight distribution. Honestly, he keeps me so informed on Twitter as to how these equal cars don't necessarily handle that well.
He was actually responsible. He was actually responsible for a mod, was he not, of a new method of car handling, which I know got over quite popular with the drivers.
Yes, very much so. And it's one that I do keep an eye on, because he is very knowledgeable about all of this. But enough about equal cars and why we're not running liveries for the next 18 minutes. Let's get into the good stuff.
Yeah, it's time for quali, folks. So strap yourselves in. We're going to be in for one hellacious ride. We have got Tom Manley making his way around the first sector at the moment before venturing through the double right-handers of turn 4 and turn 5, and then coming down in towards the, should we say, a hairpin left? It is relatively, but you can, of course, utilise that throttle a little bit. There's a couple of hairpins really on offer around this circuit that can open up a few doors, but of course we remember that the turn 10 segment you can almost keep semi-flat, as we now watch as Tom Manley looks to open up once again, and he'll be coming down towards turn 10 very shortly, and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about as we ride on board with him now. Back on the power straightaway, eating up a lot of the curb, and then heading down towards the sequence of rights, where you'll meet turns 12, 13, 14, before then heading through the left-hander of turn 15 as well. We are now into sector 3 proper, as they fly through the latter sector, and I can tell you it's Tamas Gal purple in the first sector at the moment. He's stolen it away here from, well, Tom Manley's just invalidated, but the driver down in 18th place, which is Ruben Pedreño, who was initially purple. He's now purple in the middle, TK.
He certainly is, finding time where others don't seem to be at the moment. Gal as well, going purple in the first sector. We've got Ruben Pedreño purple in the second. I think we're going to see some very quick lap times here. There'll be a few that will be disappointed by the situation, but they've just got to get their head down and get on as Caraton goes fastest.
Caraton and Pedreño, Williams locking out the top 2 places. Here comes Tamas Gal as well, who was showing some really good pace at the end of Q2. Goes 4th fastest now, and just ahead of Fabrizio Donoso's time of a 1:19.880. More times coming through as well, including Julian Klaffenbach, who now looks to begin his flying lap off the back of his outlap at the same time. But he's going to have a little bit of traffic to deal with because there's a few drivers out on outlaps as well, TK.
Yeah, we're in a bit of a weird position here at the moment because there is no safety net anymore for these drivers. They don't have to just get through to Q2 and Q3. This is just going to be 13 and a few seconds to try and get pole position for what will be, and now, a very enduring race.
Yeah, well, the thing is that he's going to have a lot of traffic here, Klaffenbach, because everyone's pretty much, positioning themselves in certain points of qualifying, deciding when they're going to go out. And obviously some drivers are going to get almost roadblocked in a way, and therefore not able to function with a clean lap. But we'll wait and see what's going to happen as time draws onwards. It's 29.445 in the first sector here for Julian Klaffenbach, who now makes his way through the next left. And as you can see, cars parking up on the side of the road just to allow him through. Obviously, you can get penalised for interrupting a flying lap, much like the real life side of F1 as well, indeed single-seater racing as a whole, as we now watch as Julian Klaffenbach makes his way through towards the final corner. Quite a string of cars just about to begin their flying laps, and some coming into the pits at the same time. Here comes Klaffenbach, looking to push himself up the order. Only goes as high as 6th fastest. Not the best lap we've seen, TK.
No, purple in the middle sector though, which shows maybe there was a flash of brilliance in there, but couldn't quite complete it in either 1 or 3.
No, just going purple in the middle sector, though, is this man, Barry Burraman. Last time out a race winner back at Saudi Arabia. Looking to come back and launch himself to the top ahead of Spaniard Alvaro Caraton. It is still 2 Williamses disputing up at the very top. Obviously, the track is starting to evolve as time draws on. Also, track currently standing at 21 degrees. It can get hotter than that, as we now watch as Barry Burraman goes 2nd fastest now, just behind Caraton by 14 thousandths of a second.
Insanely close margins amongst those that have already put lap times in the top 7, 202 thousandths of a second separating them all. So we're seeing what essentially will be fast run after fast run after fast run, because they don't have time to relax.
No, they certainly do not. Duncan Hoffland also showing green at the moment, but obviously being on his first run, he would. Not the fastest in the first sector, though, as we see yet more times come through. Jana Watmere going 4th fastest ahead of Ishmael Fassi. We got Reese Linton in 8th. Tom Manley yet to set a lap time as well, as we watch Duncan Hoffland set his first, and he goes 2nd fastest. Great lap from him. Alfie Butcher also showing good speed. Purple in the first sector, 26.6 in the middle, and joining him in the purple banners is Joni Tormler. It was purple in the middle sector. He's just had that ripped away, though, by the one, the only, Freddie Rasmussen. Here goes Butcher, goes fastest, Alfie Butcher. Great lap there from the young man as part of the McLaren team. Here comes Joni Tormler looking to join him, could only go 6th fastest, but all eyes on Freddie, who now comes around the final corner. Ulas Zilderim goes quickest here now too. Here comes the Red Bull. Freddie goes fastest once again, a 1:19.596, and ahead of Ulas Zilderim by 62 thousandths of a second, and Alfie Butcher a thousandth behind Zilderim himself.
This is insanely close margins in amongst the grid. Everybody putting in their top performances. They've got just over 10 minutes left on the qualifying clock. We've seen 1, if not 2 runs. There's still time for probably 2 more runs in this session as well. And of course, they'll have a fresh allocation of tyres to see them through.
Yeah, well, Tom Manley now up into 8th. Of course, last time out race winner around this circuit. Thomas Ronha also looking to venture around this circuit to register his first lap, but comes straight into the pits. And obviously the sector time's not necessarily dazzling at this moment. A 29.4 met with a 27.4 inside the middle sector, which is nigh on 7/10 slower than most of the grid inside the middle sector. So Ronha coming in for a rethink. Obviously, like we said before, errors can happen around this circuit. But as it stands, it's Rasmussen fastest here at Qatar, and now making his way around on his cool-down lap. A few other cars making their way around the track as well. Not seeing many personal improvements through the course of this session so far. Of course, the only two drivers we would figure not setting laps in the session are Jake Benham and Otis Lawrence.
Absolutely. Well, and technically, currently, Joris Krozen as well hasn't been able to make it into the lobby for qualifying, so stands at somewhat of a disadvantage.
Yeah, that will be a disadvantage. I mean, that would effectively see him at the bottom of the classification when we go racing later on. That's if he can even get in, because I'm guessing that that's the probable cause or probable issue, unless he has something else to do. I'm not quite sure, but yeah, we've got drivers now making their way back out again. Donoso invalidating this particular run as to whether it was an actual official flying run. I'm not quite sure, but his first sector time was a 29.618, which is certainly around the ballpark of where we would expect times to be. Alfie Butcher's purple first sector was a 29.3, for example. But Caraton also out on track at the same time. Ruben Pedreño, so the two Williamses out together. Caraton, incidentally, on this lap, 29.4 with a 26.6 in the middle sector as well. Two personal bests here for the Williams driver. Let's see whether he does improve on this run. I think based on what I'm seeing, it's a 1:19.676 is a personal best, but not an improvement above Butcher, Yildirim and Rasmussen.
I've just seen, I've heard conspiracies between the Aston Martin stands that GB says if Duncan gets pole, he's getting Daddy Dunk tattooed across his chest. Now, I've always wanted Hoffman to get pole. I really want him to get pole today.
Well, what a time to get it. GB68 with the, I'm not sure whether you call that a threat or if it's something that you'd want to have. I think I'd be rather concerned, but yeah, no problem. We're now watching Tamas Gal make his way around the circuit so far as well. 1:19.837 was the last fastest lap that he managed to post. Currently sat down in 13th, as we've said, just behind Josh Edo by a frail margin, and nearly, it is in fact 19 thousandths of a second between them. Of course, Tamas Gal currently sat just under 2.5 tenths away from the top time of Freddie Rasmussen. The top 16 times that we have seen so far, that is the only 16 times we have seen registered on the racetrack at the moment. They're currently within 3 3/4 tenths of a second, so very minute gaps, and the top four all within 800ths as it stands.
It's incredibly close amongst the entire grid at the moment. We're still waiting, obviously, for a few drivers to set lap times. I mean, Ron Hart, technically at the moment, the only driver that hasn't set a lap time, obviously, with the exception of those. Benham and Lawrence with the qualifying ban still. If you are just joining the chat, A, you're an hour late. But B, no, they do have a qualifying ban carried over after a license point. I guess excursion is probably the right word to say. They've accumulated too many license points.
Yeah, territory that they shouldn't have necessarily dawdled in. And it was a purple first sector for Tamas Gal, enough to promote himself from 13th to 5th. So a good lap there from Gal, who has been known to pull off some worldy appearances already in the past. Freddie Rasmussen out on an outlap as well. We're seeing some more cars come through across the start-finish line. Plenty of drivers also out on outlaps. We've got 6 minutes and 36 to go in this short qualifying session. And currently, as we're seeing it on our screens, I can tell you that Tamas Gal has now gone 5th fastest. So that is the latest times that we have seen come into play. A few warnings have been dished out as well. Track limits have been breached in certain areas. I just want to say this, we've had warnings for Rasmussen as well as Yildirim. We've also had 2 warnings dished out to Alvaro Caraton, and warnings also going to Duncan Offland, Pedreño and Manley. 3 warnings went out to Reese Linton over track limits, and we've also had the man in 15th place, Fabrizio Donoso, Klaffenbach, who has incidentally gone purple in the first 2 sectors and looking to register a killer blow here against Freddie Rasmussen. Here comes Klaffenbach, but unfortunately losing out the final sector, therefore only able to go 7th fastest. But a really great sign, a huge sign for the Kick Sauber team. There is time to be found and won and lost, and Klaffenbach purple in the first 2 sectors on this circuit so far.
Yeah, really, really unfortunate situation where he finds himself. Butcher, though, goes quickest out of absolutely nowhere. No purple sector is to his name, but that is the effort of consistency that gets you to the top here.
Yeah, Tom Manley also showing personal improvements inside the first 2 sectors alike. His last lap was a 1:19.781. The first sector, a 29.421. He's currently lapping faster at the moment than Jarno Opmeer in the first sector, though Jarno was quicker in the middle sector. We're now going to see Manley move up to 5th. Rasmussen has improved to 1st once again, and Jarno Opmeer, who's already made his way down the straight, has pushed himself up into 3rd. So Red Bull 1 and 3 Familiar territory for the two Red Bulls at the moment as Thomas Ronhaar goes into fourth fastest. More times coming through again. We've got Donoso also making his way towards the line, goes 13th quickest here at this stage, just behind PSGL. The two Mercedes manacled together.
Absolutely. Close between the two Red Bulls at the moment. Then Alfie Butcher is sticking out like a sore thumb at the moment. I don't think he quite anticipates where he's going to be starting. He's going to have to really evaluate his strategy where he is starting if he manages to hold on to the front row as well, because there is an opportunity still for a lot of our drivers to try and claim those places away. I'm sure Jarno Opmeer will be doing everything he can to try and find the 29 thousandths of a second that separate himself from Butcher.
Oh yeah, minute gaps, everybody, at the moment between Jarno Opmeer and Alfie Butcher. And we've also got, at the very top of the shot, the gap between Rasmussen and Butcher himself, 79 thousandths as it stands. That is just a slender margin, really, on the face of it. But they have grown a little bit since. Remember, the top four were within 800ths of a second at one time. They could come down again, though, because we've still got time until the session ends. 3 minutes and 46. I would imagine at least one more run will be in play. And it will be the one last run before the end of play, and we see the checkered flag come out. But Freddie currently on provisional pole position, and it's a 1:19.492 to beat, and that is a serious lap, TK.
It really, really is. And one that will be a tough act to follow, especially for any of our drivers, because when you get into the 19.4s, it is so close margins. It already is amongst this grid. Less than 35 hundredths of a second separate everybody on the grid. It's 0.332 of a second between 17th and 1st, which is already the closest margin. But when you start to itch away the thousandth, the hundredths of a second, it just gets so nitty-gritty that the most minor of mistakes can effectively knock you back down the order.
And remember as well, if you are a PSGL viewer, you might want to check out Sim Racing Setups as well. Of course, brand new proud partners of PSGL. Be sure to use code PSGL for a 5% discount off pro setups for the F1 25 game. Get a hold of yours today, and we perhaps will see you on track in the not too distant future. Joni Tormela now making his way around on his next run and looking to post a decent lap time to furnish his way higher up inside the top 6. Though I must say, this is a much better performance here from Joni Tormela here, TK.
It certainly is, and one that I think he'll be happy with, considering the circumstances. I mean, I think a lot of our drivers are prepped and ready and focused to their mind energy for this, what would be a long slog, Q1, Q2, Q3. But when you have this quickfire session where everything is a little bit out of order, it goes down to raw driver grit, how much you can just push on a single lap.
Yep, well, we're now watching Tormela come through the first sector into the second sector split. And then very soon on the exit of turn 10 and turn 11, he'll find his way up to turn 12, where he'll venture into sector 3. Butcher, Buremand, Tormela, now Ronhaar as well, Manley, Azildrim, Hofland, Caraton, Klaffenbach and Gal. Also Fassi, Pedreño, Ido and Linton all on outlaps now as we look to bring this session to a close. 1 minute and 36 left. Get your predictions in the live chat, everybody. We want to hear from you. TK, give us a prediction.
I'm sticking with it. Duncan Hofland to take pole.
Big dunk for pole, says TK. We'll find out very shortly as to whether he was correct. Tormela, though, now bombing down the long straight through towards turn 1. We're now about to wait and see as to who is going to land that crucial pole position time. As now we watch him make his way down through towards turn 1. Rear wing open. As now he looks to feather the throttle around the next right-hander through towards the next left at turn 2. And then he has a sequence of runs out of turn 3 through towards turn 4 and 5 before venturing into sector 2 proper. Let's run on board here with Tormela, one of the most experienced drivers in F1 sim racing. He's been on the scene for quite some time, flying through the first sector now and digging deep as he ventures into the next left once more. His last lap, a 1:19.641. He currently sits a thousandth of a second behind Barry Buremand at the moment. That is minute, everybody. That's less than a blink here at this point in time as we now watch Tormela scooting through the middle sector, now coming through the latter sector proper, as he now looks to storm down through towards the final few corners here on this track in a bid to push, well, his team higher than they've been before as Tom Manley leaves the session. Looks like his day might be done here at this point with mere seconds left to go. Rasmussen's time. Oh, Tormela's invalidated. Hard break for Joni Tormela. My goodness me, and I'll tell you what, It's purple in the middle sector here for Ulas Özildirim, so Tormala will not improve on this lap as now the timer hits 0. We're into extra time. Here comes Ulas Özildirim now, crossing the line, goes second fastest here. Does the man from Turkey A. He won't be alone though. Here comes TK's tip. Big Duncan Hofland now making his way around the final corner, looking to lift Aston Martin aloft. The team in green could be chasing for glory here in qualifying here for now. Second row, provisionally, fourth fastest. Tormala, Manley will remain where they are for now. 8th and 9th. P12 for Tamas Gal as he crosses the line as well. More cars coming across. We've seen a Ferrari come on through as well at the same time. That's, I believe, looking at on my screen, is that Ismail Fassi who has just crossed the line? I'm not quite sure. It can't be, can it? He hasn't yet set that qualifying time. It's currently Pedreño who's moved up to 3rd ahead of Butcher. Hofland down to 5th. Jarno Otmir now making his way across the line. He'll remain in 8th for now. Linton went into 7th. We have other movements elsewhere. Jarno Otmir coming through the final corners as well. Ronhaar goes first fastest. Thomas Ronhaar. Great lap there from the young Dutchman. Otmir next as well. Last but certainly not least, Rasmussen back to the top. Could Red Bull make it a 1-2 on the front row? No! My goodness me, that was close. Jarno Otmir, 3rd fastest. Red Bull just missing out on a 1-2 and a front row lockout here for this Qatar Grand Prix race. Thomas Ronhaar, the man who stands between them and the top 3, all within half a tenth. 69,000's back. Ulas Özildirim with Ruben Pedreño in 5th. Klaffenbach in 6th. Can you believe it? Top 5, 800ths of a second between them once again. Further back, we have Alfie Butcher in 7th. Duncan Hofland in 8th. Ismail Fassi in 9th. Reece Linton in 10th. Then Barry Burremand in 11th place. Caraton in 12th. Yoni Tormala then further down in 13th. Tom Manley 14th. Josh Edo 15th ahead of Tamas Gal. Fabrizio Donoso 17th. Jake Benham in 18th. Otis Lawrence, of course, not fielding a lap time like Benham. He remains down in 19th place. So there we have it. That is how the grid will look ahead of the race coming up now very shortly. My goodness, folks. What an ending and a brilliant result again for Red Bull. Freddie looking in control. Of course, we're going to allow TK just to crack on with the grid for now. So in the meantime, we will take a look at the standings again just to break down where we are at the moment in terms of the championship. It is P3 on the grid for Jarno Otmir, but he sits at the moment at the top of the Drivers' Championship. Rasmussen, who starts on pole today, is sat 2nd in the Drivers' Championship this time as the 2 Red Bull drivers currently dispute at the top of the standing. 13 points between them. Burremand in 3rd on 59. Lawrence in 4th on 50. We have Özildirim down in 5th on 37. Currently 4 points separating both he and Fassi, with Longay down in 7th. Then Butcher. Then we have in 9th place Thomas Ronhaar. Klaffenbach 10th. Then 11th for Ruben Pedreño. Crozen 12th. Caraton 13th. Berejne 14th. Tormala in 15th. Benham in 16th. Then Edo 17th. Manley in 18th. Hofland 19th. Pookie in 20th. That is how the Drivers' Championship looks at the moment. Elsewhere, team standings. It's Red Bull in control, 165 points. Ahead of Ferrari at the moment, who are on 92. Quite a gulf in difference between the top 2 in the championship. Alpine currently sit 3rd on 61. Then VCarb in 4th on 44. We then have Kick Sauber in 5th on 40, just 4 points back from RB. One big result for Kick Sauber here today, and with Ronhaar starting on the front row in 2nd place, there's every chance they can muster something like this. McLaren down in 6th as well. As we said, 4 points back now from Sauber at the same time. And also elsewhere, we have Aston Martin 2 points then behind the Papaya team, and currently locked down in 7th place here so far. Elsewhere, Williams in 8th, Haas in 9th, and Mercedes, who have had a tough season so far this season, currently stacked down in 10th place on 4 points with a lot of work to do. The season's grid looks a little bit like this. This is how the drivers were divvied up at the start of the season, and of course taking into account their real-life contract agreements with their real-life teams, of course. Many of these drivers might be subbed in as well for other drivers as the season goes on, and we'll get to how they look ahead of this Qatar round as we get to it. Otis Lawrence and Danny Berejne representing the Alpine squad this season. Of course, we have Duncan Hofland and Nicholas Longay at Aston Martin. Elsewhere, we have Barry Burremand, Ismail Fassi in at Ferrari. Haas have Reece Linton and Joris Crozen, with Thomas Ronhaar and Julian Klaffenbach at Kick Sauber. Alvaro Caraton, Ruben Pedreño at Williams. Tom Manley, Ulas Özildirim at RB, then Red Bull with Jarno Opmeer and Freddie Rasmussen. Elsewhere, we have Istvan Pukki, Lucas Blakely at Mercedes, then Alfie Butcher, Jake Benham at McLaren as well. So there you go. Tonight's grid, in terms of how we look this evening, we have Otis Lawrence and Josh Edo. Of course, Edo stepping in tonight at Alpine. Joni Tormela steps in at Aston Martin alongside Hofland. And elsewhere, brand new lineup for Mercedes with Thomas Gall and Fabrizio Donoso this evening. Obviously, Mercedes far apart from where they used to be. They used to win championships here in PSGL. No longer are they in a position to do that. Currently sitting at the bottom of the Teams Championship with only 4 points so far this season. Now, in terms of the calendar, folks, a short reminder as to where we've been and where we're going. Brazil, Texas, Britain, Netherlands. We've concluded those. We had our first break week at the same time. Japan, China, Belgium. We concluded the first half of the season as well. We've just finished Jeddah last time out, of course, last week. Tonight, we're at Qatar here for round 9. We've got a break week coming up next week, so there'll be no broadcast next Wednesday, folks, so we won't be racing. Bahrain, though, is supposed to be our next round for round 10. Obviously, that track could yet change. Australia then lines up for round 11. We head to Melbourne on October 15th, and then Mexico City lines up for round 12 for October 22nd, then Vegas on the penultimate round 13 on October 29th, and then the grand finale on November 5th at Abu Dhabi for round 14. So that is how the championship calendar looks. And a little reminder as well, folks, big shout out to our proud partner, Sim Racing Setups. Get your pro setups, unlock extra performance with pro F125 car setups created by the drivers in PSGL. Esports and stable setups with every track. For every track, quali, race and wet setups with optimal race strategies, free meta setup updates, created by the drivers racing in PSGL with pro support and compatible with Xbox, PlayStation and PC. All setups just $49.99 from simracingsetup.com. Use code PSGL for a 5% discount and get hold of your setups as well, folks, at the same time. In terms of where we're going tonight, we are heading to Qatar, the home of the Qatar Grand Prix here at the Losail International Circuit. This circuit length 5.419 kilometres, that's 3.367 miles. 16 turns await the drivers here this evening. And of course, we've had 2 races already in the past. Back in season 34, it was Lucas Blakely who landed pole position. Of course, former F1 Sim Racing and PSGL champion back in season 31. Brendan Lee would go on to win that race, though, in season 34, the first time we went racing around this circuit. We then took a break for season 36. Season 38, last season, was the last time we raced around this track, with Jarno Opmeer grabbing pole, and it was Tom Manley who came away with the victory. So we've had 3 different F1 Sim Racing champions go on to either take a pole or a victory in this race in the past. Of course, Jarno Opmeer couldn't come away with a win last year, but you never know. This year might be his year. This season might be his season. Sitting third on the grid, second row, every chance to pull something off. And remember, of course, master of the strategy doesn't always qualify well, does Jarno, at the end of the day. But as we all know, strategy is his thing, and we'll see what he can do now from the second row. Does have his teammate Freddie Rasmussen, though, starting on pole position, so every chance for him. Right. We're going to join you right back once again. TK, I think, still hard at work at the moment. We'll leave you to it, TK. Don't you worry. Obviously, let us know your predictions, folks. We want to hear from you as well in the live chat. Please grace us with your presence. Let us know who your selection is ahead of the race coming up later on here tonight. Of course, they're now ferrying them their way into the lobby. Currently, TK hard at work getting the grid together so that we can get racing. We want to hear from you. Come on, folks. Let us know who you think is going to win the Qatar race here tonight in Season 40. Will we see a returning race winner? Will we see someone totally new? Let us know here in the live chat. Be sure to check out as well, if you haven't done so already, and you're watching PSGL for the first time. First and foremost, where have you been? Welcome if you're watching on YouTube. You can, of course, leave a like and also subscribe to the channel. If you're watching on Twitch, please make sure you leave a follow. If you're watching on TikTok, a brand new platform for us, please spam the like button and also leave a follow at the same time. I can already see the messages coming thick and fast. We have cheering for Jarno, says Mapat. Thank you so much for that. Versus saying George Morgan DNF, TKP1. I would agree with that. Timo saying Klaffenbach. Otis P1 says Vita Sikchok. We also have hoping Jarno, but my guess is Frederick, says Colin TK. We have MRC Jarno. Let us know. Can we chant George and TK, George and TK? We love life because PSGL is on today. Thank you, Musical Chicken. You can chant that as much as you like. Opmeer, Rasmussen and Ron Hard podium, says Finn 1878. That's basically the top 3 on the grid as it stands. Ronha for the win, says Stephen Crute. We also have Cornet saying, hopefully no 30-lap DRS train. Now, if I remember, Max comes out and says, George, the type of guy to have 2 first names. I do technically have 3 first names, because my first name is George, my middle name is Lewis, and my final name is Morgan. And I'm pretty sure all those 3 are first names. Yeah, I'm pretty sure they are. So yeah, it's not just 2, it's 3 for me. So I can raise you 1 at this point. Rasmussen back to winning ways since definitely Duke. Yarno Podium says Hydra. Can saying Yarno as well. Thank you, Musical Chicken. I appreciate it. What have we got? Film it, odds on. Duncan for the dub says Player Gibbs. Keep it coming. Are you related to Dexter Morgan by any chance? No, Arthur Morgan from Red Dead Redemption. Yeah, he's totally real. Who else? But yeah, dub commentators, thank you, David O'Connor. Really appreciate it. Thank you for joining us. Otis P3, Yarno P2, Barry P1 says Vita. We've got Goatmere for the win as per. Omar Yaj, George and TK domination. I think I can agree with that, TK.
Yeah, I reckon so. I mean, all the drivers get all their best tips from us anyway, realistically.
Yeah, they do, obviously. I think, we supply the goods, don't we, at the end of the day. Apply for commentating in the official F1. We'll do our best, God. We'll do our best. I think me and TK are the future. Looks of it. So there we go. I highly doubt it, but you never know. Romania is here, says Ianot Kalin. I probably butchered your name, but thank you, Romania, for joining us. What else have we got? George might be the Bay Harbour Butcher. I can tell you I'm not. Okay, I've got no plans. Thank you to you all for joining us. Jonah Martins blowing up the lobby. My predictions, says Andre Tarabukin. Great to see you back, Andre, by the way. Hope you're keeping well. George, you're beautiful. Thank you so much. I don't know how to pronounce that, but thank you so much for saying so. I do try. What else? The race hasn't started yet, guys. Don't worry. If you've just joined, it's just about to start. Gary Marston, race anytime soon. It's just about to begin, Gary. You've tuned in just at the right time. We welcome you back. Ron Hart Masterclass says, Omer. I'm going to ask you, Tom, now that we're in the session now, what are your thoughts?
Well, I think we've seen a very interesting qualifying. One that a lot of people will describe as controversial, probably going forwards, but one that really tested our drivers in a way that they probably weren't expecting to see the issues come about and having to do those laps time and time again. We saw the drivers that can adapt in the moment and really put on a show for the 3 laps that essentially counted at the end. So I think we're going to see a different mindset heading into the race. One that they were prepared for initially, but when that chaos got thrown, they had to adapt and overcome.
One quick prediction from you, Tom. Where do you think it's going to go?
I think we're going to see Ron Hart win it.
There you go, folks. TK is spoken. It is Ron Har who's going to win, apparently. Let us know in the live chat. Keep those messages coming, folks. We want to see it as busy as possible. We appreciate all of you. Well over 2,000 people tuning in live at the moment on our platforms, whether you're watching on YouTube, whether you're watching on Twitch. We appreciate your company here this evening, so thank you all so much. And if you're tuning in on TikTok as well, big shout out to you guys at the same time. Please make sure you leave those likes, those follows, those subscribes wherever you're tuning in. It really does help the channel. Please make sure as well, check out the socials at Premier Sim GL wherever you're watching in the world. Stay tuned with everything PSGL through the social media platforms. We're about to go racing for only the 3rd time in our history here at Qatar, and it's going to be a blockbuster, no less. Front row, it'll be Rasmussen and Thomas Ronha. Who is going to lead heading through turn 1? We'll find out very soon, I'm sure. But as you can see, no issues with wet weather. That is not going to be a thing at Qatar unless, again, the lobby bugs out or something and we get some nefarious rainfall here through the course of the season. Unless there's been a bit of virtual cloud seeding. That can happen, TK.
Well, I've heard in my ear that potentially there's a massive storm just off the corner of the coast, but whether it hits the circuit, we'll never know.
There's a coast?
Well, somewhere there's a coast.
It's like it's 5 o'clock somewhere. Here we go. We're lining up onto the grid ahead of the Qatar race here in PSGL. And it's pedal to the metal, and it's go! Go, 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 go! Great start for Freddie Rasmussen. Thomas Ronhar starting from 2nd place, does not get the jump on the Dane. And now Jarno Watmere on the attack against his former nemesis here in PSGL as well. But at the moment, it's Rasmussen. Ronhar remaining in 2nd. Watmere tracking him at the moment, currently on the hard compound of tyre. Ronhar opting for the mediums. And we've got Ulas Azildarim currently doing battle with Ruben Pedreño. And Azildarim has moved his way into P4 with Ruben Pedreño in behind. Through goes Carrot on into P10, around the outside of Reece Linton, and he indeed moves back inside the top 10 here on lap 1. Burman into 12th, Tormala dropping to 13th, and Fabrizio Donoso getting an incredible start, TK, up into 14th place.
Absolutely fantastic from Donoso. Managed to get an amazing jump off the race start. Started 17th, finds himself 14th at the moment, and he's really started to work on those race starts. Let's not forget he's on the medium tyre and will have a little bit of advantage over the hard runners behind him, but this is where it could be critical. You've got to keep an eye on your tyre life at Qatar.
You definitely do. A lot of degradation around this circuit. You're forcing the car to do things it probably doesn't want to do on times. Donoso unable to get the move done on Joni Tormala just yet, was forced to back away from it. Tom Manley also there for company here with the Chilean at the moment. We see Barry Burman swarming all over the tail of Reece Linton here on the opening lap. Lap 2 now beginning. Freddie Rasmussen crossing the line, and without question, of course, on the opening lap, taking the fastest lap as well to boot. Cause and effect of starting at the front of the order. As now he comes through turn 1, he's got a nice half a second gap, just less than that in fact to Thomas Ronhaar at the moment, though it has floated back out again on the return out of turn 2. Otmir down in 3rd, Azildarim in the top 4 as well. Having a great race here so far. You want to make sure that this continues right through to the checkered flag. Of course, he has been the victim of harsh moments in the past, but certainly this season has been his saving grace, given his phenomenal win back at China that we long remember. It was a sterling drive from Ulas Azildarim, and he'll be hoping for much of the same here. Barry Burman once again on the tail of Reece Linton and looking really strong. Otis already up into 17th. Remember, he didn't qualify, TK, and he's around the outside of Jake Benham this time, trying to take down the McLaren. Indeed, trying to track his teammate at the same time, Josh Edo, but Lawrence forced to remain behind. But now Edo under threat, because here comes the McLaren of Jake Benham, who moves now with a nose in front of the Alpine, and it will be Benham who will surely rise above him and into 16th place.
This is some fantastic battling we're seeing towards the back. Let's not forget Benham and Lawrence, the two drivers that had to serve their qualifying bans here this afternoon. They probably had to wait the longest time they've ever had to do for those qualifyings to get underway and to finish. And now they're all bent up. They want to try and get this race underway, and they're already starting to make their moves.
Yeah, it's been a very, very solid start, I think, by all involved. We've still got every single driver within DRS of one another so far, though. Jarno Otmir on the brink of losing it. Just a little reminder as to how the tyre compounds are looking for the start of this one. We have got a flurry of mediums inside the top 7, 6 inside the top 7. Jarno Otmir, the only one bucking the trend and jumping onto the hards, so obviously going longer than the others. The key thing for Otmir here, TK, stay within DRS on Thomas Ronhaar.
And that's exactly what he's going to try and do in this opening stint. Maybe try and preserve some of the battery life as well. It's a very favoured strat that Otmir's had over the course of this season. He likes to take the tyres longer. He likes to start on the harder tyres, and it's certainly working because he's just gone purple in the first sector. He is flying on the harder compound.
He's looking.
He gets into the. Sorry, go on.
No, I was just going to say he's looking really strong at the moment, remaining within 8/10. But you were saying.
Yeah, he likes to go onto the soft tyre at the end and show the racecraft that he has built in, because he will flow through people when the tyres become an advantage again.
Yeah, obviously he's pretty notorious where it comes to strategies, is Jarno Otmir. It's proven to be his strength as a driver. We look at phenomenal wins, for instance, at tracks like Texas that we have seen in the F1 Sim Racing World Championship. He made waves at circuits such as that in the rain. Obviously no rain here at Qatar necessarily, but still, regardless of the conditions, he is known to be there where it matters. But Freddie Rasmussen ultimately has been in the best form we've ever seen him in sim racing, certainly as far as league racing is concerned. At the moment, Rasmussen standing tall on 4 wins, currently the only driver to win more than 1 race this season, and not only has he just won 2, he's won 4 of them in total. Thomas Ronhaar chasing a first victory this campaign, has not had his best series at all so far here in PSGL PCF1. Of course, here in season 40, a former title contender who nearly won the title back in season 32 and 33, but it all came to a head after Bahrain, when he was delivered with a penalty and Burman took the title instead in what was a truly controversial but a blockbuster of a finale back then. As we now watch the drivers make their way through the first sector and then very soon into sector 2 proper, it's Rasmussen now nearly 7.5 tenths clear of Ronhaar at the front of the order.
He certainly is, and a lot of our drivers we see this week in, week out will be in this sort of stage where they're happy just to sit in the tow, happy to gain the DRS down that start-finish straight and essentially hold on to the car in front. We'll see the real battling when those pit stops have started to occur in towards the last, I reckon, 10, 15 laps or so, that's when we'll start to see the battles happen. At the moment, it's just a question of proceeding with the status quo, making sure that you stick with your rivals.
Yeah, that is ultimately the mission. Jarno Watmere now outside of a second all of a sudden, but it comes straight back in. The question, will he have enough for DRS and remain in tow? Yes, he will. Of course, DRS will become a thing of the past as of the next game cycle. We will be seeing the overtaking aid removed from Formula One in the future, with the new regs coming out ahead of 2026, and there's certainly new regs now starting to fly through various single-seater championships right through from junior level, and therefore DRS becoming a thing of the past. They're going to be opting for more of an energy usage system here, TK, so it's going to be interesting to see how that's adopted. I would imagine largely similar to what we saw when KERS was introduced not too long ago.
Yeah, I think this change is going to be one that I'm going to welcome in, at least in the initial offset, see how the cars sort of handle it. We're switching from this DRS-based model where the rear wing is the main factor in terms of downforce to switching to what they're calling manual override or manual overtake mode. People have called it MUM for short, which is going to be hilarious when we start to hear that on the broadcasts. But it allows the drivers to change their wing settings on straight and in corners. In theory, should lead to closer racing because they can make those micro adjustments or the double adjustment in different sectors of the racetrack.
Just goes to show how the ingenuity has really become more front and centre, as it always is in Formula One. Revolutionises the way we treat domestic commercial road cars as well at the same time. Of course, Formula One technology eventually finds its way into the public domain for domestic use and spearheads obviously engineering excellence as well, as we now watch as the cars make their way down through towards turn one. Jarno Watmere just ahead of Ulas Isildirim now. He's been joined by the RB driver, the winner of the Chinese race, now looking to front up for a potential move into P3, and it's in Isildirim's interest really to do that because he is on that medium tyre. Doesn't really want to allow free rein for Jarno Watmere here because it'll only play into his hands and his strategy.
It certainly will. You've got to kind of work your own strategy at the moment. You don't want to try and essentially get caught up in someone else's race or get too bogged down with the decisions that they're making. We've seen this kind of week in, week out, where we've had the drivers that have gone for the earlier pit stops and then forced an undercut or forced an earlier pit stop on the rest of the grid. It's been this chain reaction that we've seen because no one, apart from maybe one or two drivers, have stuck their guns and gone, you know what, we've practiced this strategy, we're going to run it regardless of what the rest of the grid are doing.
Yeah, well, you know, that's the rule, well, the directive they would have set out with their engineers. Obviously, many of these drivers with staff behind the scenes that help them plan out their races before they even occur. We know that back at Jeddah, in fact, after we closed the broadcast, Jarno was already practicing ahead of the Qatar round. He was just simply that keen to muster up the points necessarily to grow his lead at the top of the championship. We'll have to wait and see as to whether that will come into fruition. Freddie Rasmussen now very nearly gapping Thomas Ronhaar to nigh on a whole second. It's now come straight back down again. Obviously, I wonder if Rasmussen's running a more downforce-centric setup as opposed to Ronhaar. Maybe just a slight wing differentiation, TK.
Yeah, it could be that beneficial element in the corners as opposed to the straights, where we're seeing Rasmussen really thrive because he wants to make the elements that he's got the clean air, he hasn't got any distractions, really come alive for him. Especially at Qatar, where it's such free-flowing corners, you have that MotoGP element where you want to keep the speed at least to a sort of minimum level. This is where he's really starting to focus. The corners are his friends. That long straight is going to be a little bit of worry for him. Well,
the one element that's certainly playing into Jarno Watmere's hands is that Duncan Hoffland currently sits down in 8th. He may be on the same strategy, but it might not necessarily work the same considering the cars that are currently stacked in between Duncan Hoffland and Jarno Watmere right now. That stands at, I believe, 5 cars, I think, between them, or 4 cars, I should say, in between them at this stage. Obviously, all on that medium compound of tyres. So it'll be interesting to see how that unfolds. Obviously, there is minute gaps between each and every single driver, but obviously, when you've got a vehicle barrier in your way, you can't really speak for what that car in front of you is going to necessarily do. Probably in Hoffland's sense, he'd probably prefer to be a little bit further up the road, be on the rear of Jarno Watmere and just track his fellow Dutch counterpart around the circuit, and then when they box together, he then has a fighting chance of potentially being in the race win equation. But a lot can happen over the next segment or sequence of laps that we do have. Of course, we'll add 21 off the back of this. We're on lap 8 at the moment, 29 in total, as we now watch them come through the first sector here this time. The Great Dane leads the way. Freddie Rasmussen, 4 times a race winner and 4 times a podium sitter. He has not laid claim to a single podium aside from the wins that he has amounted through the course of this season in season 40. and looking to return once again. And if he stays where he is right now, he's going to be good value for a victory. But we can't speak for those that are on a slightly different strategy to what he's on right now. Elsewhere, the gaps are flurrying outwards. They're fairly equal between every single one of them out there, TK.
They certainly are. Everyone, again, just waiting for that status quo. No need to send any silly moves at the moment. Even if you're that far at the back, you are in DRS of at least the driver in front. You can wait until the pit stops. We may see some carnage start to unfold roughly around those sort of times, but obviously time will tell when those pit stops start to occur. I did just very quickly, whilst we've got kind of a moment where we're aware of what's going to happen, just go back to an earlier point you made with the engineering side of the racing and all that sort of stuff that comes with Formula One, because there's a fun story that you always get told about Williams, and they have a department that is outside their racing business called Williams Advanced Engineering, and they have made, basically they made back in 2017, they call it the baby pod carrier, that came with the concept from Formula One, that they were going to try and create this thing that could transport critically ill babies, but it was all through technology that came from Formula One.
There you go. Just backs up the point that advanced engineering comes out to the sport and helps domestic life, as we now see our first pit stop of the day, and it's Julian Klappenbach going early onto the hards, TK.
Yeah, interesting stop, and again, something we saw very similar last time out, where Sauber went for that aggressive undercut to force some of the other cars onto a different strategy, and I wonder if this has anything to do with Ron Hart standing in P2.
Could well do. Every chance, because Kick Sauber can work together here in this instance. Obviously, it could yet come at the demise of Julian Klappenbach. Also to note, Fabrizio Donoso picking up a 3-second time penalty for 3 warnings that he's already accrued. We've also had warnings elsewhere. Josh Edo also on 2. We have warnings for Reece Linton, warnings for Alfie Butcher, also for Ruben Pedreño, and our top 2 drivers currently leading the way. Rasmussen and Ron Hart also on 1 warning apiece. So 2 more, and it could be 3 seconds going their way at the same time.
It's not something we typically see with the front runners. They're in clean air. They don't have to worry about dirty air. My apologies. So I think that was a really bad way to say that there, as we run us into the pits.
My goodness. Clip that, everybody.
No, please don't.
My goodness. Well, hopefully for some of these people it won't be code brown in this case, TK. As we now see as drivers start to flurry their way into the pits, and it's Ulas Azilrim coming in for his stop. Hard tyres now being utilised on the car. Thomas Ronhaar also coming in, so 2 early stops for Kick Sauber.
Yeah, again, interesting that they both decided to stick with that. I think that just shows that it wasn't one going in for an undercut and hoping that the rest sort of followed. This seems to be the plan right from the start.
Yeah, definitely seems that way. So Kick Sauber going a slightly different route from many, though we have seen a couple of other cars come into the pits. Julian Klappenbach not with an advantage, though, on any of them just yet, or he might get one here on Alfie Butcher, and around the outside coming through turn 2, ahead of the McLaren. Klappenbach now up into 19th.
Well, this is where it's showing the hard tyres starting to fire up even after 1 lap, and it's again something we know is going to happen. If you go that 1 lap earlier, you get the warmer tyres, and if you come out so close to another car, you'll have the advantage.
Yeah, well, here we go. Business is picked up here for the Kick Saubers. It currently sat 17th and 19th as it stands. Rasmussen and Otmir, as a consequence of Ronhaar boxing, now sit in 1st and 2nd with a second of a gap between them. Obviously, with Ronhaar's departure from the front 2, it's now on Freddie Rasmussen to respond, and that's exactly what he's done, and he really applied the anchors then, and Otmir setting the fastest lap of the race. So obviously an instant response here from Otmir. He's picking up the pace as Ronhaar and everybody else that started on the medium tyres start to come in.
I'm not going to lie, I saw a Red Bull notification pop up as Rasmussen was entering the pits. I just thought it was a 10-second penalty that was going to be handed out.
It was close. I mean, based on previous trends, you wouldn't be too far away, TK. Well, here we go, leaving the pit lane now this time. There's Pedreño, there is Rasmussen, and here comes Thomas Ronhaar. And Rasmussen will remain in front of Ronhaar, so they've managed to undermine in the initial Ronhaar's planned strategy. I think this was Ronhaar this is Kick Sauber almost trying to buck the trend, TK?
Yeah, trying to disrupt the status quo at the moment. There's 3 drivers that have stayed out on the mediums, obviously wanting to stick to their original strategy. Everybody else, I think these are responsive moves we've seen.
Yeah, I think definitely responsive. And but the one thing Freddie does have is younger tyres, albeit by 1 lap, but it's 2 laps fresher than Julian Klappenbach, who boxed before anyone else decided to do, so it's worked out nicely for him. Ulas Azilrim, who also rejoined the action, has got Ulas has got Ruben Pedreño just behind him. I should say Ruben Pedreño rejoined the action. Ulas Azurim just in front of him as it stands. So Ulas will be looking to protect the place. As it stands, Rasmussen, your net leader. Ron Hahn, net P2. Ulas Azurim, net P3. Could be another dazzling display here for Ulas, based on what we're seeing so far, if he can hold it together on that 1 lap old hard tyre.
Yeah, he's done really well so far, followed the trend, and now is back within that DRS train that's making their way through. The gap, about 11-12 seconds between Rasmussen and Krozen, so not too far for them to close up over the course of laps, because we won't see the hard tyre runners in for a considerable amount of time, probably not until lap, 18, 19, even if they want to go slightly longer on the medium tyres. So there will be this stint of time where the two drives, the two trains are separated. I am curious when we're going to see the likes of Yoni Tormela, Fabrizio Donoso, the medium runners that are left out, come in for their stops.
Yeah, another 3 warnings leading to a 3-second time penalty for Reece Linton as well. So more punishments being handed out by race control, or virtual race control here in this instance. Jarno Opmeer, though, as I mentioned before, TK, having that gap of cars between himself and Duncan Hoffland, it's now allowed him to sit just under 4 seconds in front now, and that time gap is only growing because Opmeer keeps on thundering out faster laps. As time goes on, over the last lap, he was actually half a second quicker than Duncan Hoffland. If he keeps doing this, it's only going to grow. I mean, he's really masterminded, really cooked on the strategy here on the hard tyre in the initial.
He really has, and it's a bit of double jeopardy that Duncan Hoffland's got at the moment. He's without DRS because he's got such a large gap up to Opmeer, but he's also got the element where he's got to defend from Fashy behind as well. So he's got this double-edged sword that he's trying to battle and overcome the elements, and he drops down to 3rd place, but I don't think they're going to even gain anything on Jarno Opmeer because they're continuing to battle, whereas Opmeer can just keep running.
Well, 3.8 has suddenly turned into 4.1 in terms of the gap between him and Fassi. Fassi now moving into 2nd ahead of Duncan Hoffler. We missed that one, folks. Obviously, the Ferrari now moving into 2nd place, just ahead of the Aston Martin. And in behind, Alvaro Caraton in 4th at the same time. But the gap has not changed. In fact, it's gone outwards by another 10th. 4.2 nigh on now, the gap between the Ps1 and Ps2 positions. So that is currently where we stand at the moment. Obviously, don't forget, the top 14 have yet to pit, and we still have a few drivers opting for the medium tyre, with Tormela and Donoso and Benham perhaps just hoping that they have, better luck on fresher hard tyres for the second stint of the race.
I think that's absolutely the situation that they find themselves in at the moment. They didn't go for that earlier undercut. They didn't go for the early pit stop. It's either they maybe try and follow the hard tyre runners and hope for a bit of a miracle, because of course there's no safety cars at the moment between the drivers. There's no safety cars on the grid that is going to help form this pack together or cause carnage. They've got to maybe just stick to the original strategy, hope it's going to be the quickest overall, but you never know. It can throw a bit of a curveball when you don't follow or try to buck the trend. Yeah,
well, Fassi now has grown a relatively strong gap now to Duncan Hoffland. It's gone out to 8 tenths now as we see more cars come into the pits. And they're dropping down quite quickly. Tormela and Donoso. Of course, Donoso, remember, with the 3 seconds against his name. And Tormela coming in to join him as well. So that is an Aston Martin and a Mercedes coming in to swap tyres. Now onto a fresh set of hards, and we'll see Freddie Rasmussen very easily move up in front of them. And I would imagine the rest of the order will follow suit as well, just seemingly undercutting both of those drivers that have come in. So that's an illustration to see the benefits of that early stop. Rasmussen now coasting onwards, 10.3 though between him and Joris Krozen. If we take a look at their last laps, they're actually, there's 4 tenths between them, TK, which to me doesn't really sound like a lot, especially considering Krozen's on older tyres.
Yeah, but 4 tenths, realistically, over 4 or 5 laps, they've had these tyres where they've managed to drop themselves back. They've gained, realistically, 2.5, 3 seconds over the course of those laps that they've had the fresh hard tyres on. It's incremental. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. It's not like they're making 1-2 laps a second. But over the course of that stint, they are gradually edging ever closer. And all this is going to do is push those drivers that currently stand on the hard tyres, and of course with Jake Benham still on the mediums, further and further behind when they initially make their first pit stops.
Well, if we just base or certainly compare the laps from last time, in fact no, looking at it now based on the last lap, Freddie is now 9 tenths of a second quicker. His last lap was a personal best as he crossed the line, as we now see the car of Jake Benham coming into the pit. So Freddie starting to push. Last lap for Jarno Opmeer was a 1:24.371. So he is still lapping in the 1:24s at the moment. So probably losing time to his teammate as it stands. So Freddie is gaining at the moment. but the benefits that Jarno has is obviously clean air in front, and he has got plenty of clean air behind. As now Benham looks to leave the pits onto his fresh hard compound of tyre. Tourmaline moves past, so does Donoso. So Benham now dead last again, victim of the undercut.
Yeah, just to clarify, 1 to 2 seconds per lap, not 1 to 2 laps per second, as I said slightly earlier on. But everyone now on the hard tyres. The full grid have come in after Jake Benham. But just look at the track back, how far back off the field he is. It's going to be an illustration of where those hard tyre runners are going to be.
Yeah, no, it certainly is. Just looking, actually comparing Freddie Rasmussen to Jarno Opmeer at the moment. It is now starting to become 8 tenths at the moment. Klaffenbach's gone purple inside the first sector at the same time, so really starting to push on his hard compounded tyre, but he's nearly a second away from the rear of Ruben Pedreño at the moment, so really does need to push to ensure that he doesn't lose out on any DRS whatsoever. The man in the kick Sabre obviously looking for an improved performance here this time, but of course remember, went early on that pit stop. Ron Ha came in and boxed a lap after him. Klaffenbach, of course, P2 back at China behind Ulas Azildrim, as we now watch as we see Klaffenbach make his way through the final corners before then tackling the long straight. Tamas Gal into the pits at the same time. And now we're seeing the hard runners opt for the mediums. Gal being the first.
Well, Gal's going to bite the bullet essentially and really start to maybe mess with the strategies of all the other drivers that stand around him, because he's going to be the stalking horse to see how he develops, where he comes out. All the other teams are going to be looking at this and going, right, what is about to happen to that Mercedes now in 20th?
Well, he's currently 3.8, 3.9 away, but will have the faster compound, but just how well will they perform in the closing laps of the race? I mean, this could work, then again it might not. Tamas Gal going for perhaps a slight gamble here. Of course, you've still got a fair ways to go at this stage, approximately 13 laps left in the race. Though, I must say, he's got every chance, says young Tamas Gal, who's only just recently now started moving into the F1 sim racing space himself as a professional driver, but had plenty of appearances in high-end PSGL league racing to prepare him for that very moment. And on his day, he can certainly perform at his very best. Has provided race wins in the past through the tiered system, as now we see more movements elsewhere. Reese Linton also jumping into the pits at the same time, so yet another hard tyre runner coming in, and this again directly in response to Tamas Gal.
It's interesting to see that only one driver came in. I was potentially expecting more in this sort of situation. Very similar to what we saw with the medium runners in the first stint, the pile-on energy, everybody sort of begging for themselves and fending for themselves, where strategy goes out the window. I wouldn't be surprised if we see it maybe 18 or 19 the next couple of laps, roughly around their prepared pit stops. Obviously the cars will be lighter, they can go for longer on a set of the medium tyres, so we will probably see the scheduled pit stops in the next few moments. But it's an interesting one that not many have responded early.
No, not many have. Only Linton really responded to Tamas Gal, but he's remained in front of Gal by 2.6 seconds. So obviously, while Gal did come in a little bit earlier, I think he was behind by a slight margin anyway to Reese Linton, but already Linton able to gain, or at least manage, a little bit of time in between himself and Gal. So with him being well outside of the DRS by approximately 1.8 to 1.9 seconds, he can now just focus his efforts on Jake Benham in front, and there's only a 0.6 of a second gap between him and the McLaren as it stands in P18. So keep your eyes on Linton here to see whether he can pack a punch against the Papaya car, as now we see 3 cars come into the pit. So now we're seeing the essentially a partial amount of the front runners come in. Also Josh Edo, Crozen and Fassi. Duncan Offland also in the pits as well. Quick stop there from Fassi, as now he looks to rejoin the action, and we'll wait and see as to where Freddie Rasmussen comes out in all of this, and it's going to be very easily into 4th. So this is where we see the impact of those early hard tyre stops. Rasmussen now, of course, still net leader, only 9.2 seconds away from Otis Lawrence, but by extension we're talking over 90, nearly 20 seconds between Rasmussen and Opmeer.
It's a really spread out grid at the moment, and nobody's quite sure where they stand. If you look at the difference between Opmeer, Burman and Lawrence, you can see it on the track map at the bottom right-hand side of your screens. There is at least 1, if not 2 corners between some of them, which is very unlikely, let's be real, for a PCF1 race, especially at this stage of the Grand Prix. We've got, 12 laps to go here in Qatar. The grid is not back together. It will be in the next couple of laps, but there is still that element where there are people out of place.
Yeah, no, there will be. Obviously, drivers not necessarily conforming to where they were supposed to be. Might choose to box on alternate occasions, obviously just trying to shake up the race. Of course, you have to do that. Jarno Opmeer now coming into the box. So now in comes the Flying Dutchman. And credit to Dylan Warren in the live chat. He said that lap 18 would probably be the time, and he's absolutely right. The medium tyres now coming into play here for the Flying Dutchman, and he'll look to rejoin. Obviously, he's going to sink below potentially Freddie Rasmussen here. I think that's going to be the case as now Rasmussen makes his way down the long straight. Is he going to beat Opmeer to the punch? Is this going to be a worldie of a strategy pulled off by Red Bull here? Out comes Jarno Opmeer now, looking to rejoin. He's going to come out in P8, just behind Alfie Butcher. That's not bad, TK. And 2.8 clear of Fassi.
This is stunning. This is fantastic for Red Bull. He's in that sort of no man's land at the moment where he's got a gap to Fassi behind. He's got a little bit of a gap to Butcher up in front, but he can see them. He's like a prey, he's a target at the moment. Butcher is going to be locked on to Opmeer's eyes, and he will be chasing him down lap after lap.
Well, the race is on. Alfie Butcher just in front of him here in 7th position with a 1.1 second gap. But of course, Opmeer on much fresher tyres than anybody else in front, and he's even a lap fresher and fresher than anybody else in behind as well. bar Otis Lawrence, who has also come in but is currently operating dead last. This is going to be, you believe, child's play here for the Flying Dutchman. He's done this time and time before. Can he do it again? Obviously, current championship leader. He's got Alfie Butcher for company as well further up. Barry Burman still yet to box as well. He'll have fresher tyres of anybody else when he comes in, and in he does come now. But obviously we already know that Opmeer's already boxed. We'd imagine he'll come out in front of Barry. The question is, does Barry remain inside the top 10 when he returns out on circuit?
Yeah, rough guess is probably round Yoni Tormula. Between him and Hofland is where I expect him to come out. I think I might actually be even less optimistic than I thought. He's going to drop down roughly to where the McLaren of Jake Benham is. Look at how much time he's lost from leading this race. The grid is really starting to come together again.
Yeah, Jarno Opmeer also getting in front of Alfie Butcher now, so that's one dispatched here for Jarno Opmeer. Next up on his list is Julian Klaffenbach. He's going to be taking on a Kick Sauber, of course. Not yet his nemesis of prior seasons, Thomas Ronhaar, and that was so easy there for the Flying Dutchman against the 11-lap old hard tyres that Klaffenbach is donning. No match for the 1-lap old medium tyre compound now with just over 9 laps or so to go. Ruben Pedreño in 4th. And now the Red Bull is flying as he now makes his way through the right-hander, coming through the next portion of the slalom, heading down through towards turn 10. And he's going to nurse the accelerator pedal once again before flying through towards turn 11, 12. Then he'll join sector 3 and he's going to move past the Williams this time with full power on offer here for the Red Bull. Jarno Opmeer now drifts into P4. And next up on his list, Ulas Azilrim.
I'll make a little bit of a prediction for chat. Any guesses who went purple in the first sector? I didn't think he needed it. It's Jarno Opmeer, of course. Absolutely flying he is.
He is definitely flying at the moment, and I must say this might be the fastest lap of the race so far when he crosses the line. But wait and see as he now storms down through towards turn 1. Not quite. It was a decent one though, 1:22.425. So he now makes his way down through towards turn 1. Obviously, we're also going to be seeing a very fast Barry Burman out there, but he's lost places. We've also got Duncan Hofland moving past teammate Yoni Tormula. So that's P9 now for Duncan Hofland. The Dutchmen are on the move.
They certainly are. Both of them at the moment in full effect. They've got Ulas and Thomas Ronhaar kind of stuck in the middle of them, if you want. It's a Red Bull sandwich that we quite often don't see in this sort of format, especially with that much filling between the two of them. But there's 2 drivers that will not want to be overtaken.
No, they definitely won't be, or certainly won't want to be overtaken. Ronhaar on the tail of Freddie Rasmussen, and you just know that these two, after their contentious history that they've had in the past, we've mentioned Mexico already. Ismail Fassi has just bullied his way past Alfie Butcher as well, also on relatively fresh medium tyres, only a lap older than Jarno Opmeer, so expect Fassi to be just as quick as well, pretty much on a similar strat to Jarno Opmeer right now. And unfortunately had his win taken away from Saudi Arabia. I'm sure that his blood's going to be boiling with every prospect of landing yet another stellar result. He needs something here, does Fassi, after Barry basically took the win that he thought he rightfully deserved at the end of the Jeddah race.
Absolutely. Opmeer here to the inside of the final corner. That's making it look far too easy for Jarno as he gets the DRS, but they're still side by side towards turn 1. Ulas is not going to make it easy, but actually Opmeer says goodbye.
A nice long straight here at Qatar, enough to allow Opmeer into the top 3, so a podium place Now in the hands of the Red Bull. Reece Linton has overtaken Fabrizio Donoso. Josh Ito ahead of Tamas Gal as well. But this is the battle we want to see. This is in contention for the high-end podium places, and now two Dutchmen are now coming into fight as Fassi moves past Julian Klaffenbach. Great move there from Ismail Fassi. He's on the move as well as now Otmir hovers all over the rear wing of his fellow countrymen. But they're not necessarily friends, they are competitors. They've had a turbulent time in league racing in the past. We have seen controversy in absolute mass. And now Otmir looking to strike as he now beckons his way around turn 10 again. And now coming through turn 11, it's wheel to wheel between them. Otmir now and Ronha side by side as they come through in towards turn 12. Ronha defending very nicely indeed. And Otmir had no answer in that exchange. But they're going to go wheel to wheel, I'm sure, again in the not too distant future. This is going to be some race.
It's absolutely fantastic. It's clean, it's fair racing, it's respectful racing. And this is something we've been missing in recent rounds, in recent seasons. It's Otmir and Ronha, and they're racing competitively, but it's fair.
Yeah, more penalties being introduced. Klaffenbach and Manley receiving them as well. But now here comes the long straight. And Otmir now with every chance to make it a Red Bull 1 and 2. He's going to go late on the brakes and try and catch Ronha by surprise, but was unable to do so. Ronha holding on, just leaving it late as he came in towards turn 1 and turn 2. And now holds position in second. That will frustrate Otmir just a little bit as they head now down in towards the next double right-hander. The Red Bull remaining on the back of the Kicksauber. This is going to be one dice over 6 laps. They could either see them in the gravel, in the barrier, in the wall. Otmir going late again with another look up the inside to try and send Ronha off. And they're going to go side by side again. Great racing between these two. Otmir trying his damnedest to keep Ronha down. Around the outside from the Flying Dutchman will move Jarno Otmir now into second place. A sterling move from the Flying Dutchman. Championship leader. It's Red Bull 1 and Red Bull 2.
It's tyre difference all over again, and Jarno Otmir proving how quick he can be when he gets onto the better tyres. Again, fair racing. He tried to catch Ronha by surprise, and he did. I don't think Ronha even saw the moves coming until the very moment that Red Bull was the barest of Martins alongside, and now he's got to deal with Jonas Zilderim, who wants the third place position.
Yeah, it could be Red Bull 1, Red Bull 2, Red Bull Junior Team 3 at this point if it carries on. But we're now watching Jonas Zilderim all over the back of the rear diffuser of the Kicksauber. And the game could once see it shift once again, not in the favour of Kicksauber, who opted for early pit stops. As the pits opened up and the strategies unfolded, again Kicksauber might be on the wrong end of it as Alfie Butcher moves ahead of Julian Klaffenbach as well. We got Carroton up into 10th place. So yeah, more positions now changing hands, and it's getting really close further back. Duncan Hoffland very nearly leaving his front wing in there as well, and has been left on the plate here for Alvaro Carroton as they head down in towards the next right-hander. We've also got Barry Burman trying to make places. He's at the inside of Jake Benham and into 14th place, and Otis Lawrence, a torrid day today. Another penalty going this time his way, 3 seconds against his name.
Yeah, it's really not been his day at the moment. Penalties spread quite thick and fast amongst the grid. We've got 2 drivers with 6 seconds worth of penalties, Linton and Donoso. It's definitely going to be a day they'll want to forget. Obviously, in a normal league race, 6 seconds sometimes is recoverable. You're able to pull away or at least hold somewhat of an advantage. In a lobby as close and as clean as this, is one that essentially is going to be one that drops you to the end of line.
Well, Thomas Ronha not out of this yet. He still remains within DRS of Jarno Otmir, and while he does remain within DRS, he's always got a chance. Though I will say this, given the nature of his tyres, that will largely go against him. Freddie Rasmussen, even with a younger compound on, and at this moment, Jarno Otmir could be set to pounce on his teammates and decisively stick himself into the lead of the race. Currently leads the championship and looking to put a bigger gulf in between himself and his own teammates, and by extension the rest of the field. Jarno Otmir leads at Qatar here on lap 25, and it's a 10-second time penalty for Otis Lawrence speeding in the pit lane. That's a retirement, TK.
Yeah, I think as soon as he got the penalty, he knew that his summons had been said, and he wasn't going to be able to try and make as much progress in this race as he wanted to. He's firmly checked out of the hotel and leaving a bad review.
Yeah, not happy, clearly. Obviously was doomed to start from the back of the grid from the very beginning. And Otis coming into this round in the championship on 50 points. 39 points away from the championship leader coming into the start of tonight's festivities. Well, it's going to be distinctly larger than that now, and it's becoming a one-team race at the moment. And Rasmussen not daring to put up a fight. He's quite happy with remaining in second, as long as it's a Red Bull 1 and 2, essentially trying to pull off what Ferrari have done over the many years, where we have seen them, of course, dominate at the very top of the teams fray. But it definitely looks like we have got an all-star team here at Red Bull, and they're going to be so tough to beat.
I've got a rather unfortunate stat for Otis Lawrence, who had insult to injury for the race here this afternoon. I think he spent longer waiting for qualifying to finish than he did actually racing in this Grand Prix.
My goodness, TK, that is brutal. That is absolutely brutal. But you're right. You're probably right. I have to say, it has been a long time that he has spent waiting for some on-track action. So Otis Lawrence, really poor day at the office this time for the Alpine team, and I'm sure they're going to be reviewing certain elements as Duncan Hofflin now moves past Alfie Butcher. They were side by side for a brief time. Hofflin now into 7th with Butcher down in 8th, and has got Klappenbach for company. Barry Burremand also on the move as well, and moving past in the process Reese Linton. So there we are, some further decisive movements, and Barry of course on the freshest tyres inside that bottom 10 as well, and hovering all over the back of Joni Tormler, who you'd imagine would make short work of that driver in the Aston Martin.
I think he certainly will. It's all going to be a kind of a strategic game to the end of the race here. They've got 3-4 laps left of the Grand Prix. It's all everyone out for themselves, apart from the Red Bulls, who Jarno Opmeer is slowing down to make sure that he's giving Rasmussen DRS. He's showing why the team game is working.
And what a move from Barry Burremand as well, really throwing it up the inside of Joni Tormler. That is a man with a plan right there. Barry trying to make these 6-lap-old medium tyres work. But how much of a chance can you give him, TK? We've only got 3 or so laps left.
I don't think there's enough opportunity for him to really try and salvage something from this. It's a tough game. It's always a tough game.
Yeah, definitely is. I mean, that's essentially by and large the constraints of when you're racing on this platform. The margins of winning and losing, they are so fine. Thomas Ronhaar now still with Ulas Azildarin for company. And I would imagine that maybe this is Ulas biding his time for an opportunity to strike that could yet see him back on the podium for the first time since China. And it'll only be his second podium of the season as well. At the same token of that, with Ronhaar only stuck on one podium himself this campaign, as we now watch them come through the first sector and now in towards the middle. Another look this time from Ismael Fassi on Ruben Pedreño, as they now come out of turn 6 and through towards turn 7. Opmeer just nursing the gap of half a second between himself and his teammate Freddie Rasmussen, but all this allowing him to gap Ronhaar to 2.3 seconds. I mean, this has been a phenomenal display from Red Bull.
It has been, and it shows why the team game for them and the team bond is so strong, because even though Jarno's on the faster tyre, could quite possibly keep running away with this situation. He's helping Freddie, making sure that Freddie pulls away from Thomas Ronhaar, doesn't put him in any danger, and essentially they've checked out and they will just casually come home to the race now. It's interesting to see though, Ronhaar and Azildarin, both on 17-lap-old hard tyres. The tyres are just going to be struggling at this point where they went for those earlier stops.
Yeah, well, we've got 3 laps to go now as the 2 Red Bulls cross the line together and go full send down through towards turn 1. Further up the order, there's Thomas Ronhaar with Ulas Azildarin for company. Of course, Pedreño, who has been by and large reasonably strong this campaign. Of course, alongside Caratonas, Tamas Gal receives a 10-second time penalty for speeding in the pit lane, and that looks like a retirement here for Tamas Gal, I would suggest as well. So that's 3 cars out of the race here at this point: Gal, Manley and Otis Lawrence.
Yeah, an unfortunate situation for all of them. Lawrence, of course, had that penalty that was hanging over his head. Very similar story for Manley. Had a 3-second that he couldn't quite shift, couldn't quite make to the best of advantages, so he decided to bow out. I'm unsure as to what happened to Tamas Gal, though. He had no penalties apart from the one he gained for speeding in the pit lane. Yeah, no, it's strange, honestly. But retirement off the back of that for Tamas Gal. Tom Manley out, Lawrence out, 3 cars out of this race here at Qatar. And we're on the penultimate lap of the race. Red Bull singing away at the front end of the order. And we'll look to take this one home and indeed hosed as well. A gap of 3 seconds now unfolding here over Thomas Ronhaar as Julian Klappenbach now comes under fire from cars in behind. Barry Burremand pushing him around at this point as well. Obviously chasing at least something to certainly celebrate inside the top 10. But at the moment, it's not yet arrived, as Thomas Ronhaar could come under pressure now because he's got cars in behind that are looking to take this P3 away. Because Ulas Azildarin chasing that second podium of the season, much like Ronhaar is as well. 3-second time penalties as well being issued to Ido, as well as Donoso again, as they ferry their way down the
Well, through the apex of turn 1, here comes Barry Burremand all over the back of Julian Klappenbach, looking for his moment to strike. Here comes the furiously fast Iranian around the outside with the better grip on his medium tyres. Looking to challenge now, and a little bit of tapping between himself and Klappenbach, but that did not deter Burremand. He's into the points.
He is indeed fantastic moves to get into the points. I mean, he would have done with that penalty being applied anyway, but he wanted to make sure that he got it on track. Absolutely stunning.
And two former teammates now coming together. Pedreño very nearly losing out to Ismail Fassi. Fassi tried his down-disc but could not quite pull it off. Remains down in 6. 3/10 between them as they come through the middle sector. Very soon the latter one. And there's quite an intense fight now going over the top 6 places now this time. Obviously, Joni Tomlin now on the tail of Julian Klappenbach, but no stopping the Red Bulls at the head of the order today. Jarno Opmeer pulling out a phenomenal strategy as he always does, but Freddie Rasmussen with a penalty. I think he's got enough though. 4.7 seconds is the gap between himself and P3. Opmeer though will round the final corner in the process and will lift aloft yet another victory. His second of the season, with it being a Red Bull 1 and 2 as Freddie smashes the barriers. Red Bull 1 and 2 here at Qatar. A dominant display from the team that lead the constructors' standings, and they will continue to do so as Ronar takes his second podium of the season. Jarno Opmeer, 2 wins in his pocket. Podium number 7. 7th heaven for the Flying Dutchman, and it looks like a 7th world title is in view.
Well, what a race at the end there. It could have gone any way, and I think that teamwork between the Red Bulls saved Rasmussen right at the end. He would have been clear, or actually was clear, by 7/10 of a second when they crossed the line. It was just incredible margins.
The 7th PSGL PCF1 title could be on the cusp of reaching Jarno Opmeer's grasp, but there's still plenty of racing to come. Bahrain, Australia, Mexico, Vegas, Abu Dhabi. But it's Red Bull on top here today with a 1-2. And they continue their ascension through the rostrum. Incidentally, that is their 3rd 1-2 of the season. Only this time, for the first time, it's Opmeer winning and Rasmussen finishing in 2nd place. Jarno Opmeer is confirmed your victor here at Qatar at the Losail International Circuit, ahead of Freddie Rasmussen, his teammate. Thomas Ronhaar finishing down in 3rd as well, ahead of Lasse Zildrim with yet another gallant display. Ruben Pedreño in 5th for Williams. Ismail Fassi in 6th place as well. Duncan Hofland in 7th too, with Alvaro Caraton in 8th. Barry Burremand 9th with Joni Tomlin in 10th. Further back, Julian Klappenbach in 11th spot with Joris Krozen in 12th. Then Josh Edo, then Jake Benham and Reese Linton. And we have Donoso down in 16th ahead of Butcher. And then Tamas Gal, of course, down in 18th place, would later be a retirement, along with Tom Manley and Otis Lawrence as well. Though those two in 18th and 19th have been recorded, apparently, in 18th and 19th place. But obviously, generally considered retired in that exchange. But there we are, folks. That is how it all looks. What a phenomenal effort from Jarno Opmeer. Yet again, a winner here in PSGL this season. And dare I say, if I look at my stats now, obviously at the top of our historical statistics, at least mine, that I have prepared, obviously keeping a record of every single season here in PSGL PCF1, that is the 26th win for Jarno Opmeer now throughout his entirety of his time in PSGL PCF1, and his 53rd podium here today. Off the back of the result we just saw as well on part of our podium sit. Of course, we did have Freddie Rasmussen as well, featuring up at the top end. That's his 14th podium of the season. He took his 11th pole position here as well this evening at the same time. So congratulations to Jarno Opmeer, 26 times a race winner, TK.
Absolutely phenomenal statistics. We saw that last week when he got his quarter of a century, because he's one of those drivers that consistently can bring performances time and time again, and the statistics are there to just back that up.
Yeah, no, absolutely right. Obviously, a serial winner, I think we could probably say here at this point. But we'll have a look and see whether he will join us, indeed, in the commentary box for a quick chinwag, so we can talk about the season so far, and of course this particular race. I mean, what a statement, TK. Ultimately, I mean, at this point now, is it a foregone conclusion that it's between Opmeer and Rasmussen at this point? What are your thoughts?
I don't think anything's a foregone conclusion at this point. There's still races left to win, to lose, to crash out of. We've seen championships swung on their head at quite possibly the last moment of asking. So it will go down potentially to Abu Dhabi, if not maybe Mexico the race before. It's just going to be oh so close in this championship. I just have that sense that it's not going to be easy.
Well, 4 podiums in a row for the Flying Dutchman, and he joins us back again in the commentary box here today as well. Jarno, congratulations, second win of the season. I make that 26 wins in PSGL, PCF1 as well in total throughout your time in the series. You grow the gap at the top of the championship. Red Bull is still dominant. You must be thrilled.
Very thrilled, George. Was a perfect race, to be honest. Don't think anything really went wrong. And then obviously me and Fred pulling away from the rest of the grid was even more lovely. Just to avoid any incidents or taking any risk with last lap overtakes. So it was beautiful.
Yeah, majority of the work done in the first stint with the run on the hard tyres, sort of staying with those medium runners, sort of teed up the perfect second stint for you, do you think?
Yeah, especially, once they box, you need to have a good pace in order to, not fall too far back for the second stint. So that are the laps that matter. And then obviously once you move on to the mediums, you still have to make the overtakes, which on a track like this is not easy. Especially on this game, but yeah, the tire advantage at that point was just so big that even with the dirty air, I could stay on someone's gearbox, So that made it a lot easier. Nonetheless, it was still hard because there's not a lot of hard braking zones. You really have to do it on the short little straights. Maybe putting your nose in places where they don't expect it. That was really the only way.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much what you've got to do. You've got to find it in the corners pretty much. But also at the same time, there is an element of risk at Qatar, isn't there? With the elements of runoff that you do have, you can be tempted to kind of push too far. We saw it a few times with some of the drivers, even the more experienced ones like Donoso, for example. 3 second time penalties, he picked them up twice. That's the dangers of Qatar, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, basically every corner you can get a track limit penalty on entry, apex and exit. So it's... in that regards, a very tricky track. At the same time, enough runoff. So battling side by side, you can take quite a lot of risk without, hurting each other too much. So if there wasn't, then this track would be even more impossible to overtake.
Yeah, I'm going to throw it to TK now. You've got one for us, TK?
Yeah, I was going to cast your mind back to qualifying, or what was probably the best attempt at qualifying that we've had for this afternoon. How did that affect your mindset when we got into the end of Q2, the start of Q3, and it kind of goes, right, blank slate, we've got 18 minutes to set the fastest time we can. Was there something that was going on how did you cope with that realistically?
I didn't mind too much because I only had one set of tires for Q3. I think Barry was one of the, Freddie was one of the few with 2 sets. So he was put at a disadvantage the most. At the same time, he still got pole, so perhaps it didn't matter too much in the end. And actually really happy with qualifying for once because P1 last week, P3 this week, it seems slowly getting there. It helps, of course, if you've got probably the fastest driver ever on the F1 games as a teammate, but especially moving to the multiplayer cards, any doubt that there was any advantage for Red Bull, I think, seems to be gone. If anything, it was in our favor. So, very lovely.
I bet you would have taken starting the grid with the championship order, I would imagine.
I wouldn't have mind, but P3 was fine enough as well.
Yeah, so what are your thoughts? We're supposed to be heading to Bahrain next time, though I'm not quite sure because we've got that little bump at turn 4, haven't we?
It won't be Bahrain for sure.
No.
I think it will be either Spain or Brazil.
Yeah.
But we'll see. Next week is break week. I will very much enjoy that.
I bet you will. Well, we'll let you have that break week now, Jarno. Thank you for joining us. We appreciate you here being with us as well. Congratulations, another win, and the championship looks in good shape. So we wish you all the very best.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Jarno Opmeer, everyone, of course, winner here at Qatar once again. Well, actually, I say once again. That's, in fact, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the first time he's taken a victory around this circuit. So there we are. We've made history as well at the same time. Next up, from one Dutchman to another, the man who achieved only his second podium this season, but it couldn't come too soon at all. Here is Thomas Ronhaar. Ronhaar, welcome back to the commentary box. A busy race, really, going a different route from others. Obviously, both you and Julian opted to box earlier than most. How did you sort of feel that race went on your part?
Well, first of all, glad to be back again. It's been quite a while. I think the last time I got a podium in PSGL was, let me think, I think Silverstone. Yeah, things haven't really gone my way recently, unfortunately, but glad this time everything sort of was maximized today. We tried to get sort of an undercut on like Freddy and also Jarno, just to, you know, not let them have any advantage when they are together. Unfortunately, that didn't work out as we wanted, and yeah, out of the pits I was still the exact same gap to Freddy as I was the lap before. So really just trying to save as much tires as possible. Towards the end I was kind of struggling with keeping up with, let's say, Jarno carrying Freddy along with me having worse tires. That was really yeah, not ideal, let's say, but made the most of it, and I think P3 was the maximum I could have done today.
Yeah, I think largely this season has been about you catching up. Would I be right in saying that based on the results we've seen this season? Obviously, I know you had some concerns. Obviously, we spoke briefly after Brazil where we were looking to do interviews, etc. I know you were fully focused on improving the performance ahead of the races that were coming up during the course of the campaign. Is it the case that you're playing catch-up, but ultimately, I suppose, in this sort of side of the game, this side of F1 sim racing, it's very difficult to play catch-up, isn't it, with a grid like this?
I wouldn't say I've ever done catch-up. Definitely haven't been playing as much. I've been also doing karting recently, doing other stuff I want to enjoy before the season starts. So really trying to do as much as possible. And of course, you know, prep the best I can. I'm still driving the same I did last year, maybe a tiny bit less. I don't want to, let's say, burn myself out too early, too soon. Yeah, I'm not too unhappy with how it's going. I think the pace is still how it was the last year and the last couple of years. So I'm not worried at all with how things are going at the moment. I'm happy with the team. I'm happy with how things are going. So yeah, nothing much to complain.
No, well, good stuff. We'll throw it over to TK. TK, got anything for us?
Yeah, I was going to say, well, first of all, Thomas, welcome back to Commentary Box, and welcome back to what would be your first, I think, official podium starting. Obviously, Silverstone was a little bit controversial with all the Jarno Opmeer stuff that went on, but it's always good to have you back on it. And how's it feel to, I think, get back into a position that you feel somewhat comfortable with?
Yeah, the pace today especially was very, very strong. I think we could have fought for pole position, with, of course, Freddy and Jarno being probably the two quickest drivers on this game. Generally speaking, of course, them having as a team is always, you know, a really, you know, strong thing to have. But I also know myself, I can always mix myself up with the best. And like I said, I'm really happy with how things are going. I think I can still do the same things as I was doing previously. And yeah, really happy.
Just to ask about the early stops as well, Thomas, you sort of went against the grain, aside from other teams this evening again. We saw a little bit of that last time out as well when we went to Jeddah. Obviously, your teammate Julian boxed first. Is this just data gathering, or is this a genuine sort of decision you're making, or is it just a case of experimenting, trying different things ahead of the F1 sim racing campaign?
I think the three things you just mentioned, I think is a single bit of both of all, really. Just trying to, you know, make the best of it possible. I think definitely Jeddah was probably one of the worst strategies we've had in probably my 4 years of driving on PC. That was definitely not a thing to have. But I think the strategy today was mainly just to try something on Freddy, just to get some sort of track position ahead of him, so I could eventually defend maybe towards the end because of how much the dirty affects this year's game. You saw with me and Ulas towards the end, I was really struggling with the tires, but purely because I was able to get, let's say, a good exit out the final corner. He was never able to get past me. So yeah, really trying to box early to get that track position. That's really important around here. But yeah, unfortunately that didn't quite work out today. I think Julian did the exact same, trying to get some sort of positions gained towards the end. Yeah, also that didn't quite work, as the undercut was pretty much nothing, unfortunately for us. So yeah, like I said, it's a bit of all. We also trying to do the best we can. We're trying to do stuff for esports. We try stuff. And yeah, I'm still happy with the strategy nevertheless. I think, like I said, B3 was the maximum today, so yeah.
Well, there you go. Not bad at all. If it's the maximum, you achieved it. So congratulations, Thomas, on that. Back in the podium spots for the second time this season, and we wish you all the very best. But in the meantime, enjoy your break.
Cheers. Thank you.
Brilliant stuff. Thank you very much. Thomas Ronhar, everybody, of course, driver for Kick Sauber. Indeed, Sauber Esports team, as they have been known as for such a long time, even under the banner of Alfa Romeo. But interesting to hear that. I think Kick Sauber, it has been a voyage of sort of discovery, just trying to understand certain things before the F1 sim racing season. Remember, of course, PSGL at this point in time on this game, essentially it's the precursor before F1 sim racing even begins, Tom. So they're basically using this time to experiment, find key ingredients to enhance their performance come, when the serious stuff really does kick off.
Yeah, it's one of the very few situations that they get to be able to, I don't want to call it a live test, but live test their strategies, maybe a bit of a wild card situation that they want to then take forwards to that LAN event situation. They have a very rare opportunity. They only get kind of one attempt at it. They might get a very lucky second if we run Brazil again, as I think Jarno alluded to slightly earlier on. But it's a very rare opportunity to have 20 cars on the grid of this pace, of this caliber, before we get to the F1 esports, of the F1 sim racing season.
Yeah, almost a dress rehearsal. At the same time, people do want the bragging rights of being a PSGL PCF1 champion as well, which only, can I just say, 3 different drivers have achieved in the last, how many seasons now? 8 seasons? I think it's got to be. No, maybe 9 seasons. What is it now? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I can count 8 seasons. So there we go. So that's how things look. So it's all about getting that badge of honor. Obviously, speaking to Jarno, it just sounded like job done today. To be honest, TK.
It did, and it almost seemed like, right, we're done with this one. Let's move on to what normally would be the next round. It wasn't anything out of the ordinary from him.
Frightening, right? For every other driver on the grid.
Scarily robotic and rehearsed.
Yeah, it does seem that way. And I think, obviously, that's how Red Bull like to operate, I think, on their best day. And certainly when you've got Rasmussen and Otmir in your corner, I mean, that's what you're able to do, right?
Yeah, they've got 2 of the quite possibly best talents in F1 sim racing. They have got 2 drivers that both are capable of going out and getting wins, but as we saw today, that will happily assist the other driver if the strategy doesn't work out for them. Where we saw Otmir just helping Rasmussen kind of escape from Ronhar's grasps, really.
Unbelievable stuff. Well, there you have it, folks. It is going to be 16 points in the pocket of Jarno Otmir now, and if my maths is correct, that's 105 points now. He has broken a century, and the gap will grow to his own teammate Freddie Rasmussen to 16 points now, TK. So we're talking a whole race winning points allocation ahead of his own teammate now. Of course, I haven't entered any of the other ones in, but obviously congratulations to Thomas Ronhar being back in the podium places for the second time this campaign, and 10 points going his way, pushing him up to 31. But if you want to stay tuned to all the results, folks, you almost certainly can. Social media is where you can find it, at PremierSimGL, and you can check them out on Twitter, Instagram, and of course, maybe check out the TikTok for fun if you like. Of course, we do post the results on the social media pages. You can also join the Discord as well, get involved, join the server, and stay up to date with all the results tables as they come through. But folks, first and foremost, thank you for joining us on this show. If you've been watching on YouTube, please leave a like and subscribe as well to the channel to stay up to date with everything PSGL. If you've been watching as well on Twitch, big warm welcome to you guys. Please leave a follow as well at the same time. And our new area of broadcast, TikTok, thank you guys for joining us too. Please make sure you spam that like button. Also leave a follow at the same time. It really does help us out. And at the same time, if you've enjoyed the commentary, you can check us out too. TK, where can they find you, sir?
They could probably find me outside Connor's house in about 10 minutes asking for the overtime. No, I'm joking. You can find me on social media, they call me TK, on pretty much every single thing. There's a really cool story on mine, actually, earlier from when I went and saw some Steam trains, so go check that out. Yeah,
there you are. Go and check that out, everybody. You can also check mine out as well, at George Morgan TV on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. It's all the same. You can find it on there. But also, check out our good partners at Sim Racing Setups. Get hold of your own setups, folks, that have been delivered by the pro drivers that have taken part in F1 Sim Racing as well at the same time. And use code PSGL for 5% off. On this day here at Qatar, Jarno Otmir landed a killer blow. A blow that would send him 16 points clear at the top of the table. 26 wins in the entirety of his PSGL PCF1 tenure. And at the same time now, he has pocketed 2 wins this campaign with 7 podiums lifting him aloft. With still a number of rounds to go until the end of the season, can Red Bull do the unthinkable? Take the team's title with a 1-2 in the Drivers' Championship. We'll see you next time, folks. After our break week, we'll see you in a fortnight's time. But from all of us here at PSGL, it's been a pleasure. Goodbye. PSGL is brought to you by Sim Racing Setups. Get your pro setups, unlock extra performance with the Pro F1 25 car setups created by the drivers in PSGL. Esports and stable setups for every track, quali, race and wet setups, optimal race strategies, free meta setup updates, as well as created by drivers racing in PSGL, pro support and compatible with Xbox, PlayStation and PC. All setups just $49.99. Get them from simracingsetup.com and use code PSGL for a 5% discount. See you on track.